Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. No matter where you're tuning in from around the world or whatever time of day it is, welcome to race day for ASR's Bathurst 500. Happy Bathurst 500 Day, everybody, as you can see on the sign at the background of the shot just there on the live stream. 81 laps and 500 kilometres lie ahead of us, and for the 18 teams that are in the race today. It's a beautiful track. We've been here so many times before, and if you missed out on qualifying night last night, you missed out on quite a few interesting moments and a bit of fun and a bit of entertainment value. But forget all of that. That's in the past. It's what lies ahead. And starting in about 15 minutes or so, we will have the prestigious event and the biggest event in ASR to start. My name's Steve DeVries. Alongside me for the third and final time this year and in this series is Michael the Floodman Zalavari and Kiwi Chris Riddell. For you two, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Steve. Good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. And good morning to our friends over on the West Coast and around the world. Yes, it is Bathurst Day, Bathurst 500 time for ASR, and it is one of the most exciting days of the year. I am absolutely charged. I'm chomping at the bit. I can't wait to get this race underway. And we've got another 500 kilometers of Enduro Cup action to come your way very soon. Chris.
Michael, Steve, g'day to you both, and g'day everybody. Bathurst 500 Day. It's one of the... Anytime we race around Bathurst is an amazing experience, and we're going to see some really intense racing today. I cannot wait. It's going to be an epic day.
Yeah, I think so too. It's going to be one of those days that it could be a very, very fast 500. I think there's been some rumours circulating already just with the pace that a lot of people have shown that this could be one of the quicker events we've seen. Last year, of course, we had the red flag situation. The race had a handful of safety cars in there as well. We may or may not see as many of those safety cars as you might have seen last year, but it could go very, very quickly today. We've allowed 3 to 3.5 hours for it to happen, but even I was doing the maths last night, even at drivers doing 2:07s, if there was no green flag running, even with the pit stops, it's probably going to be just under 3 hours, and that'd be almost a record. It would have almost be unheard of if that happened.
Yeah, well, there's a long way to go between lap 1 and lap 81 though, Steve. So while the outright pace might be on for a record, we've still got to get to lap 81. And as I said, plenty can happen. This track bites and it bites hard. And with 18 cars and how close everyone was in qualifying last night, I'm sure we'll see a lot of pack racing, which in itself has its own complications. So we might be on for some record pace, but there's still plenty of racing to get there.
Yeah, not wrong. There's a long way to go. And I know the driver's briefing is just getting underway at the moment as well. And there's a fair few little interesting things that we saw in qualifying last night that no doubt will have been brought up. Just with drivers getting out of the way, drivers knowing who they're racing. So that'll all be being brought up by Brenton Foley, who's been one of the stalwarts of the ASR admin team from the get-go and does all the drivers' briefings in the Supercars series as well. Here he is on screen going through. So he'll be taking them all through their paces. There is actually a couple of small adjustments to some of the safety car procedures for this third and final round too, and that's in response to what we saw a couple of times at the Gold Coast. So I think there's probably... We'll run through those in a little bit more detail when we actually get into the race session in about 10 minutes' time.
And there's plenty to talk about before we get into the race session because, of course, while today is a very important day in its singularity and its individuality, it is, of course, the biggest event of the ASR calendar. It is also part of the Endurance Cup Championship. And after the last round at the Gold Coast, there were quite a few incidents to cover off. The stewards were very busy, and there's been a bit of a change at the top of the championship. A few major penalties applied, including a disqualification for the Will Devonish Peter Savage car from race 1 for reversing onto the circuit after going off at turn 10. So they have dropped well down the order in the overall standings that we've got up on screen now. You can see them down in 6th place. And that means it's actually Lachlan Burke and Hans Brunswick in the All-Australian Races car that leads the way. Team Has-Beens, after their race win in the second race at the Gold Coast, sit in second. And then it's Kurt Stenberg and Luke Rosella, the form guys of the championship, after struggling towards DNF in race 2 at the Gold Coast, sitting in third. But there was quite a number of penalties applied at the end of the Gold Coast weekend. Unsportsmanlike driving applied to a few drivers. A post-race penalty applied again to the Will Devonish and Peter Savage car at the end of race 2 as well. And then a penalty as well for the Lime Mitch and Ujit Mishra car, which was given a 10-second post-race penalty in race 2. There was a lot of action at the end of race 2 and a few people getting a slap on the wrist, and that's the championship as it stands. It's fairly tight at the top. And Steve, I believe you've done the numbers. Do you have an idea of what the situation is for, say, all Australian races and team has-beens if they want to win the championship today?
Yeah, I do. There's been a little bit of math to work this one out. So you can see there the deficit between the team has-beens and the AAR car 44 is only 29 points. And then the difference between the top team and the third place car, the Parramatta Speedway Racing car number 2 of Rosella and Stenberg, is 38. So in theory, when you take a look at how the point structure is set up, it's 300 points for a win today. Second place gets is 24 points less, so that's 276 points. So when you look at the top 3 and you sort of work it out and go, okay, if the Parramatta Speedway Racing car number 2 was to win this race today, which they are the raging hot favourites to do so, they need to win and they need to hope that either the team has-beens car that's there in second place or car number 44 finish third or lower, because third place gets 258 points. So that's 32 points in arrears. Actually, the team has-beens car needs to finish third or lower, and the first place car, the AAR car number 44, needs to finish fourth or lower to make that work for them, because fourth place gets 240 points. It's essentially the same as the Real Life Supercars Championship with how the point structure is. So 300 points for first, 276 for second, 258 for third, 240 for fourth, fifth gets 222, and so on and so forth. Points pay all the way down as well. So if everybody finishes the race today, everybody will get points. There's 18 cars, and the points actually pay all the way down to 26. So there's a fair bit to work out there. But that's the mathematics there. I mean, you can't really rule out the PBF race engineering car either of Foley and Boak. They will need a little bit of help for things to go their way as well. ERT car 288, of course, is not racing today with all of the late pull-out with the ERT team. They're actually off doing I think it's a Vast Motorsport Bathurst 1000 or something at the moment.
Oh, there you go.
That's what they're up to, is the conflict of interest. And then beyond that, it starts to get a bit difficult. So it's a bit of a bridge too far for Devonish and Savage, the Bogdown Motorsports car there in 6th place overall. And if you pretty much got less than 400 points, I think you're pretty much out of the running really for top honours overall. But you can still win the race and put a nice feather in your cap. So that's the point standings and the point situation, with thanks to Penrite, a better class of oil. And of course, Ryco Filters giving us a good backing as well for this one as well. I actually got a chance to see all the prizes that were actually being offered up. Scott Stancliffe has actually done a really awesome job to help us with securing some of that stuff. I have seen what's in there. There's actually some quite really nice prizes in there as well. There's some really good quality hoodies, some really good quality dress jackets, t-shirts, there's stubby holders, rugby balls. There's a really nice mug set there as well, like a 3 set of coffee mugs with Penrite on. Some of the old school Penrite logos on t-shirts and stuff as well. Looks really, really pretty. So there's going to be some nice little prize packs we'll be able to divvy up. Now, we haven't worked out what's going where and, what the winners overall get, what the, if there going to be awards for individual race wins, like whether we're going to issue something for the 500 in its own right or that. We haven't actually sat down and worked all that out yet. I only saw it on Friday, so there's actually a fair bit of work to do. And there's actually a really nice present in there as well that there's only one of them, and we're probably going to hold that for our presentation night in December, and we're going to have to work out what that gets attached to. I can't say much more than that, apart from the fact that it is worth quite a substantial amount of money, and I do want to really thank Ryco Filters for putting that prize up. the guys from Ryco know what I'm referring to here. I'm not going to, I'm not going to say what it is. It's a super secret prize, but it's worth quite a fair bit of money, and there's only one of them, so it's not fair to try and award it to a car in the Enduro Cup because it'll be very difficult for there'll be a fight and an argument over it, basically.
I see. Brilliant.
Thank you, Pinwright Ryko. That's amazing to hear, and can't wait to see how today turns out and who wins those lucky prizes.
Yeah, will be there'll be some deserving winners any way you look at it with regards to how these prizes are actually going to be divvied up. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot there. There's at least probably several $100s worth of merchandise that the guys of Penrite and Ryco have put together for us to divvy up. And I also probably need to give a shout out to as well to Scott Stancliffe, because there was some stuff from last year's Bathurst 500 that still hadn't made its way over, and that will be coming in the stack when everything comes over for the Enduro Cup prize as well. And that's actually for Luke Rosella, because he's sort of been very vocal about not getting that part of the prize. I think Mitch had sort of conceded and just said, look, I'm not too stressed about it. He was happy with the notoriety of winning the event. So that's very, very gracious of him not to stress too much over that. But yeah, Luke Rosella, your prize will definitely be coming over from last year's 500 as well in that shipment.
Classic. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, so to speak.
At some point it does, yes.
Yeah, brilliant for Penrite and Ryco to be on board, and thank you for your sponsorship and helping make this ASR Enduro Cup happen. And also want to shout out to all the other little bits and pieces of the ASR community that have put together some sponsorship, some signage for today's Bathurst 500. Smith & Sons Engineering, Camerology Engineering. What else we got? Ourselves, Endurance Chat. We've got a little banner there as well. It's just every little part of the community that is put together, and that helps make this community such an enjoyable thing to be a part of, and such an enjoyable series to race in. So yeah, it's a real community feeling here at ASR, and it's a privilege to be able to bring this event to you guys.
It is, and it's a big community feeling as well. Once again, we've got the teams meeting going, and there it is. You can see they're all starting to tune in there from right around the country, across the New Zealand, and even all the way from India there. Ujit Mishra in the bottom right, left-hand corner, nervously waiting his turn to jump into the wheel of the car. Actually, he's going to be starting the race, so he's trying. He looks a bit nervous there, I think, gentlemen. He's actually just turned his camera off because he doesn't want to show us that one anyway. Classic. So he's very, very nervous there at the moment, I think.
John McDonald looked very chill, just having a bit of a nibble on the fingers.
He had the Hawaiian shirt going there as well, I think, John McDonald. So I think, is he starting the car? Yes, he is. Looks like he's going to be starting as well today. And good to see, again, the participation in the live chat as well. Scott Nolan actually popping up saying he could throw in a Smith & Sons inflatable hammer for a prize. And I said that's going to be a classic booby prize, I think, for tonight. So that'd be fantastic.
The first DNF. Actually, we'll give that to Mishra if he manages to get through.
Oh, come on. Don't start that now.
We had to.
The poor guy is, after last year and all the trials and tribulations he went through with, turning like better part of 2 laps in the last year's Bathurst 500, and then top of that going over to ASC and then having the same treatment happen. I feel for the guy. I actually really want to see those guys do well this year and put a good showing on.
Absolutely. And I mean, they've been one of the form teams as well in this championship. Not quite the same luck and the same aggression as their teammates in the All-Australian Races Cup, but they're currently sitting 8th in the championship, and they did have a DNF at the Gold Coast, which is one of the reasons why they've dropped so far down. But there's a significant string of pretty competitive teams as we're starting to getting some cars out on the circuit. I think that is there's Brad Severs in the Peugeot Le Defer PBF car. Ujit Mishra on track as we speak. There's also, I think, Freakish just running some laps. The final chance to run some laps before we get into it. There's what we saw in qualifying last night was a lot of cars and a lot of drivers at peak speed right on top of each other. We made a very explicit mention that the gap between 10th place Nathan Higginson and 11th place Peter Thrower at the end of that 30-minute qualifying session was 5 thousandths of a second. to get into the shootout. So very, very tightly packed at the back end of the top 10. Very, very tightly packed in the top end of the top 10 as well. Brendan Ross, Fly Mitch, Will Devonish all separated by less than a tenth of a second. So there's some real pace equalization throughout the field. So we're going to see a great amount of battling, I think, throughout the race. One of the complicating factors in that, though, is how you match the fuel strategy with your driver minimum. So when we talk about the race facts a bit later on, I'll go through what the teams might be thinking and what things they have to consider, because it's a quite complicated equation for this 500-kilometer race.
And we need to throw into that things like safety cars, which we're no doubt going to see. Things like, maintaining that sort of tight pace for 81 laps, battling tooth and nail over the top of the mountain, not making mistakes, not throwing it in the wall. And as we saw yesterday in qualifying, it doesn't take much to do that. So the strategy game here is so very complicated, and managing that. And we're seeing teams and drivers in the previous race of the Enduro Cup not do the best job of that.
Exactly right. There's the classic red mist that comes down, and you kind of lose where you are and just kind of focus on, you get tunnel vision to what's happening in this moment instead of what's meant to be happening at the end of lap 81. Managing the drivers, the co-drivers today have the dual job of not only being the one that has to step into the car, but also having to manage the driver in the car, just try and keep them a little level. Because 500-kilometer race, 3 hours. It's a long time to be behind the wheel, and it's a long time to be in that racing mindset. But to keep a cool head here is going to be very important.
Yeah, 100%. And you can see there's already talking about cool heads. There's a few drivers that are just a little bit nervous with some of these restarts and starting procedures on the grid as well. So they're all trying to find a little bit of track and space to themselves where they can actually get those starts done. Because they're going to have to try and walk these cars away from the line. Very tall gear ratio in the car as well. The tallest gear ratio that there is in the game. Maximum top speed down Conrod Straight, and full of fuel. They're going to have to not only walk these cars away from the line for the start of the formation lap, they're going to have to walk them away really nicely when the race gets underway as well. Yeah, we were hoping that the race was going to start at about 1:15 p.m. local time. There's just a slight delay. I believe a few drivers actually just using the bathroom at the last minute from what I've been told. And we are one driver short, I think, at the moment in the serve. I'm just trying to work out who that is. Looks like it's Urjit Mishra, who is yet to jump back in here.
Hopefully we'll get underway shortly. I'm just thinking one driver short. Does that mean Michael Caruso's racing?
Wow, that's brutal. You're so mean.
I am. I just had to get that off my chest.
Brilliant.
And the starts here as well. It's actually a really tricky starting grid. If you're down the back, you'll be uphill. It's really awkward to get the car off the line. Well, whoa!
Yep, few guys having a few moments, I think, here as well, and just sort of trying to push the limits a little bit. There was a little bit of a small coming together just across the top of the mountain there, but this will be exploratory laps for some of these drivers because they've got cold tyres as well. Pressures are not up to scratch just yet. A lot of them have just come out of the pits. And they've got to get everything on par and on point. So, well, while we wait to see what's going on with all of that, we might actually bring up for the final time this year our track overview with, thanks to Ryco Filters, it's the Ryco Racing line, and we'll have another look at this 6.213 kilometre circuit for the final time, like we had a look yesterday. So, into the regions of New South Wales, west of Sydney. It's actually not that far from Sydney when you really measure it properly. Been a place that a lot of people have been to over the years. I've been there once. I think a lot of people have been there a lot more times than I have. Last time I was there for the 2019 Bathurst 12 Hour, which of course is a good event, but we're not worried about GT3 racing this weekend. We're worried about supercars racing in the pixelated world. So 23 turns, 81 laps lie ahead. The qualifying record last night did not get broken. It was settled at a 2:04.1 was the quickest lap of the entire qualifying session. So officially, the lap that was on the old circuit from 12 months ago was the one that currently stands. But the race record, that is still a threat to go this weekend, and I think there's a very, very good chance it'll probably go this afternoon. If it's not by much, it will probably be maybe by a tenth or two at the maximum. And there's, we went through all the hotspot locations yesterday as well, gentlemen, and we only highlighted 5 of them on the video, but there is plenty more.
There's 6.2 kilometres of them.
Yes,
Exactly.
6.2 kilometres of hotspot.
Exactly right, and something we didn't really talk about yesterday as part of the hotspots was that dance down the mountain. Of course, it's very difficult to pass there, but that's where we saw a lot of mistakes in qualifying over Skyline into the S's. A lot of cars making contact with that outside wall. So especially early on, making sure that you're calm and collected over the Skyline and making sure you're staying off that wall. Of course, first hotspot is Hell Corner. That turn 1 is going to be very congested as we approach that on lap 1. The cutting is the second major passing opportunity. Very lucky there in the shootout for Cam Rutledge not to end up facing the wall. And then, of course, through McPhillamy and Metal Great, the great Greg and Nangle bicycle moment right up on 2 wheels during the 2019 shootout, really showing off all the sponsors on the roof. And then the biggest, baddest corner in Australian motorsport, the Chase, top speed, diving through there. That's going to be terrifying on lap 1 with this 18-car field. And then we saw many cars last year fall apart in the latter stages, blowing engines, braking for the Chase. Thomas McMillan in the Kurt Stenberg machine, or this car that he shares with Kurt Stenberg, rather, on the final lap, of blowing it to pieces at the very end of the race. So this is 6.213 kilometers of carnage. We're going to do that 81 times to hit our 500 kilometers.
Certainly do, and we are underway with the formation lap to take us through the 500 kilometres of racing across 81 laps, and a great tribute there from the admin team. Happy Bathurst 500 Day and all the signatures there. There's a couple of those boards. There's that one there is just on the approach to Sulman Park. So we've got a fair bit of action to get through, and Flood, let's have a look at this order and who's starting.
So we have off the pole Kurt Stenberg in the Parramatta Speedway racing car that he shares with Luke Rosella. Rosella set that lap time in the shootout at 2:04.4 to put that car on the pole position after easily making it through as the last man for qualifying. He shares the front row with Lewis Wedding in the Team Has-Been car. That car took a race win last time out at the Gold Coast. Brendan Ross doing a great job in the shootout, setting a lap faster than his qualifying lap to jump up to the front row of the grid. Peter Savage and Will Devonish will start from 3rd position. Savage has been given the starting duties after Devonish did qualifying last night. Devonish put that car into 3rd place, of course, the 2:05.2 in the shootout. Lion Mitch will start the All-Australian Races number 13 car. They were the 3rd place in qualifying, but lost a position in the shootout. Ujit Mishra will be sharing that car. We were expecting Mishra to start, but there was a bit of a small misunderstanding, which Mishra has actually clarified to be a massive misunderstanding in the lead up. So Lion Mitch will be behind the wheel for the first stint. Hans Brunswick and Lachlan Burke out of 5th are current Endurance Championship leaders. This car was 2nd in qualifying, but Lachlan Burke had a bit of a problem in the final sector of that shootout lap, and that dropped them down to 5th position. So we saw Hans get a cracking start in the starts for the grid at Sandown. Hopefully he can replicate that once again. Phil Boak starting the Brendan Foley qualified PBF race engineering car from 6th place, and Cam Rutledge and Termo starting from 7th. Termo was very brave, parking that car with a few minutes left to go in qualifying and end up making the shootout by the skin of his teeth. Tim Redmond and Scott Stancliffe will start from 8th. Scott didn't quite have the qualifying lap he was after. That car should be a rocket in the early stages of the race. Nathan Higginson and Daniel Cox will start from 9th. Higo putting on a pretty impressive run to get into into the shootout by 0.005 of a second. He jumped up to 9th. Braxton Stancliffe and Josh Andrews will start from 10th. Braxton was very sore that his shootout lap didn't quite go to plan, but still a great effort for him to get into the shootout, and best of luck for those guys in the race. Freakish starting the Kiwi Sim Sports Team Tapua car from 11th place. They missed out on the shootout by 5,000ths of a second. He shares with Peter Thrower. Cheese in the second of the Kiwi Sim Sports car. He shares with let me get this one right before I mess that one up. NZ Snipes. They start from 12th. John McDonald starting from the pit lane in the number 19 Locky Lock Motorsports car. So that's an interesting one. They will miss out on the first lap carnage. Steve Burko and his driving partner Darren Kemp will start from 14th. Matt Cecil and Taipan from 15th. RSM Latino, shout out to the RSM Latino fans in the live chat, sharing with Steve Warwick in the RSM Black Shorts car from 16th. Locky Lock in the number 237 Locky Lock Motorsports car that he shares with Justin Cecil down in 17th. And Brad Severs and Rody will also start from the pit lane down in 18th place. 18 cars, 81 laps, 500 kilometers. We are only moments away from the final round of the ASR Endurance Cup.
We certainly are. And I think there's a reason. I know why there's a car starting, or at least one of the cars starting in the pit lane is. But the revs on the 18 supercars on this grid rise in unison, and the Bathurst 500 for 2021 is underway. Good start by the front two off the line there. There's a little bit of sandwiching going on. Looks like the Devonish and Savage car was almost in the fence, and Wedding's going to go wheel to wheel with Stenberg around the outside of turn one. Stenberg prevails for the moment, and they're all safely through.
Now we begin the climb up Mountain Straight here. We've got Hans Brunswick was involved in that sandwich with Nathan Higginson. Doesn't look like too much damage done, as well as running too wide up front as well. Stenberg's held on to the lead.
Have a look at
Through right further back, and there's been contact.
There is.
Going to be on the outside, and there's a couple of spots as well if they come up through Griffin's Bend.
Have a look at all the, there's a wall of cars ahead of young Braxton Stancliffe on the run up to Griffin's as well. He had nowhere to go. He had pretty much had to hold station, just as everybody is at the moment. There's a car that's gone backwards. The Turmo and Cam Rutledge car, I've noticed, has gone backwards off the start. They've now gone all the way back to 13th, and they're under siege from a couple of cars back there as well. It just got a little bit of an air gap now to the Taipan and Matt Cecil AP Sim Sport Mustang behind them. So there's a bit of drama early on for that car that started in the 10. Already lost 6 spots.
Check out where Nathan Higginson is, though. He's jumped up 3 spots from 9th up to 6th already. So he's jumped Peter Savage and Phil Boak in the early parts of the race. Both of them having terrible starts. Savage down 4 spots as the field streams down the mountain for the first time. At the moment, it is Kurt Stenberg, then Lewis Wedding, Lion Mitch, Tim Redmond up 4 spots as well. Hans Brunswick, Nathan Higginson, Savage, Boak, Stancliffe, and Cheese rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, good move by Higginson, up 3 spots already. They targeted getting into the top 10 last night. Now he's under siege from Pete Savage, so he's got to just hold station just for a little bit. Here's the fastest part of the course, closing in on 295 kilometres an hour. Savage on the inside, he gets the move done, and Higginson allowed him the space to make it happen. And he just sort of half stuck his nose in there a little bit, but they got through there squarely and cleanly. And Higginson goes back to 7th, but a good authoritative move by Savage early. So he started a little bit further up the order. He's now going to do a little bit of a recovery job, having dropped 3 spots from the start at the end of lap 1. Lap 1's in the books, 80 to go.
So Lewis Wedding, who was really on the tail of Kurt Stenberg heading up the mountain, has dropped a little bit away from the Parramatta Speedway Motorsports team, and now is coming under fire from Lime Mitch in the All-Australian Racers car as they head up the mountain for lap 2. They're the closest guys in the top 5 at the moment. Braxton Stancliffe actually is right on the tail of the PBF race engineering machine. He pulls to the inside up Mountain Straight. Is he going to make a dive at Griffin's Bend? He goes deep under brakes. Boat doesn't give him the light of day. He tries to close the door. There's going to be a bit of a drag race up towards the cutting, and Boat pulls out of it and gives Braxton that position. So Braxton, a good move up into 8th now, and Philip Boat dropping from the start. He's now down in 9th.
Yeah, that was a very smart play, I think, there, Kiwi, just to ease the throttle out a little bit on the way to Griffin, on the way to the cutting. It's a bit too early to be trying those sorts of moves, and the cutting is one of those places where there's a one-track groove. We talked about it last night, that if you're about a metre or so outside of the groove you need to be in, you end up in the fence.
Absolutely, and the cutting's definitely one of those places. And even going too wide at the cutting at lap 80 is ill-advised, let alone lap 2. So very smart by Phil Boat there.
Yeah, smart driving very, very early on. Kurt Stenberg starting to slowly check out at the head of the field. Weddings held off the advances of Lime Mitch for the better part of this lap so far. Scott Stancliffe and Tim Redmond have had a pretty decent start. They've moved up to 4th place there, just in the queue here, just behind Lime Mitch, and then comes the second of the AAR Mustangs with Brunswick at the wheel.
Mitch is on here as they come up to the chase. He's right under the bumper and swings out to the inside. Lewis is on the brakes, but Mitch sails through. So that's second place now for Lime Mitch, returning the All-Australian Races machine up the order to where they were in qualifying, ahead of that Team Hasbin's machine.
Good clean
and now,
pass too.
Yeah, and now Mitch is going to be trying to chase down an already 3-second gap to the leader, Kurt Stenberg.
And that was
checking out.
And that was important, I think, that pass got made by Mitch as well. I think he realised that he had the car speed, and if Stenberg and Rosella were going to start to check out at the head of the field, then he needs to try and show a little bit of that pace a little bit early on and try and catch him, because he did say that they'll give this a red-hot crack to try and go back-to-back. There's obviously 2 drivers in the field that have the ability to do that. They're not sharing a car this year, but currently those cars are in positions 1 and 2. So Stenberg sharing with Luke Rosella. He's one half of last year's defending 500 champions, and then Lime Mitch is the other half, and he shares with Jim Mishra. Oh, and he's got wide! He's had a win cup at almost gone in the fence, going up to the cutting as well. That was very, very lucky for Mitch.
Incredibly lucky. I think he would have grazed the wall slightly with his left rear quarter, but that was... Oh, he's done it again through the Ryko barrier as well, so very rugged. Yeah,
he's a little bit loose on this lap. I'll have a look at that one on the Ryko Filters replay as well. We might even go on board with him for this one and just have a listen. Did he come down one too many gears, or what happened here? You can keep it read on the dash on the far side there. No, he was actually, he lost it in 4th gear. He was just out of that tram track, and it didn't quite go according to plan for him, but he got away with one there. Absolutely 100% got away with it.
That's one of the lives already burnt at lap 3. Not ideal, but that's actually caused a bit of a backing up of that train at the moment. So we have now Mitch, Wedding, Redmond, Brunswick, Savage, and Higginson. Higginson's just off the tail, but Savage in 6th place. There's 5 cars there, separated by just around a second, all battling for that second position. So it's tight stuff in the early stages of this race.
You can see the shot on the rear here from Lewis Weddings. Number 5 Has-Been's Mustang. Looking back at Tim Redmond, behind him Hans Brunswick, and then Pete Savage tucked in there as well. So these 4 cats at the moment, they've got their eyes on Lime Mitch, and they're just plodding along quite nicely at the moment. I think is probably the way to go about it. They're not making any silly moves. They're taking their time. They're sizing up what everybody else is up to at the moment and just playing a smart game. Stenberg, a full second faster on that last lap. Not quite fastest lap of the race. That came about a lap ago, but 2:05.4 relative to Mitch's 2:06.5, and everybody else, of course, a little bit slower than that. But early warning signs, I guess, for the field. Car 2 is on the move, and a little bit further back, you can see Redmond now under siege from Brunswick up to Griffin's Bend, but there's no way through there, and Hans pulls the throttle in and says, nope, I'm not in position to challenge around the outside there. Would have been a bit of a brave move to do that this early on.
Yeah, definitely this early on, and especially at this moment in time, because something that we didn't cover off in the pre-race is the requirements for the co-drivers and the expected fuel loads, which will be very important. So I wonder if these guys are already in the fuel saving mode, because we talked to a few drivers ahead of the race, and it seems that the maximum fuel window that you can get to is about 15 laps on a stint. We have seen some drivers maybe try and stretch that out as much as they can, but 15 laps seems to be consistently the longest stint that people can get to. If this was last year's Bathurst 500, that would be perfect, because the co-driver minimum is 30 laps. But this year it's 33 laps, so it's almost a requirement to get 3 stints in for each driver. So we'll see that play out over the course of the race. But yeah, that's going to be a complicating factor for today's race. As a result of that, 15 laps means the critical lap number is lap 66. So in 2.5 hours time, when we start looking at the end of the race, 66 will be the lap where we start to see those final pit stops being made.
Absolutely.
And I guess then in that case, really, you've got to try and, if you can save 6 laps of fuel throughout the race, it's going to save you a short dash at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. We'll come back to that in just a minute with regards to what happened with last year's strategy. As I've just seen on the other screen, it looks like the John McDonald Ben Hall car's just gone into the fence at Sulman Park.
And Freakish is off as well.
And there's a couple of others off as well. So these guys are a little bit further back in the field compared to some of the other drivers. Let's go and have a look at what happened to John McDonald there. He was being chased by Brad Severs. And these guys, of course, remember, they started from the pit lane, and I had them on screen. I was just about to cut back to them and have a chat about why they elected to start from pit lane. And then McDonald was just very narrow. And he's gone stunned on a Steve, hit the same spot that Steve Johnson did back in 2014.
Not the ideal one heavy race.
No, not at this moment. Now they're back together again, these two as well. I think that they've swapped sides again. You can see here on the live pictures, they've gone back this way. Now I don't know why McDonald and Hall elected to start from the pit lane. I think that they maybe just decided they wanted to stay out of trouble as they go scything through the chase at 295 k's now. But I believe the reason why Rhodey and Brad Severs elected to start from the lane was after the kerfuffle that we saw in qualifying last night, where Severs was on a lap on his own right. He was 4 seconds up, but he wasn't going to improve his position on standings. And then Braxton Stancliffe came at this part of the course here, and there was a coming together, and I think the stewards have had a look at that and just tapped them on the shoulder and said that was probably a little bit silly, and as a result I think they've gone and served a self-imposed penalty just to stay out of the carnage on lap 1. Which is probably, probably a smart call.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We got an update from the live chat, Lachlan Burke Racing, saying John missed the start, which is why they started from pit lane.
There you go.
You might have heard me protesting in the background. I was watching the battle for 7th place, Phil Boak, Braxton Stancliffe, and Nathan Higginson. That's all changed around in the last lap or so. Braxton Stancliffe made a move on Higginson for 7th place at the chase. A really, really nice move, actually. But then made a mistake at Griffin's Bend, and that allowed Boak to get through on the pair of them. And then just behind them as well, Burko made contact with the wall at the cutting. So the tail end of the top 10 were very, very angsty in their little battle there. And as you can see on screen now, Boak is defending very hard from Braxton Stancliffe, who dives down the inside into Murray's. Can't quite get the move done this time around, though. So they'll box on to the next set of corners, really. But it's impressive from Braxton. We heard after his shootout lap how dejected he was. He was absolutely torn up about the mistakes that he made on his shootout lap to drop that car down to 10th place. But he's been pretty racy at the first part of this race, and he's got eyes on the rear of that PBF Commodore for 7th place.
He certainly does, and he's showing the nose quite a fair bit here on Phil Boak as well. But Phil Boak, very, very experienced campaigner as well, and he'll know how to handle the race car and how to make all of that like PBF Commodore as wide as he possibly can. As we have a look a bit further down the field as well, I'm seeing that a few guys have sort of dropped off the back of the pack a little bit. Young Braxton Stancliffe on board at the moment. As we have a bit of a look here on the, we've had a bit of a drama there with the little bit of a hiccup. That's not the button I wanted. That's the button I wanted. And there is young Braxton Stancliffe soaring away at the wheel. Repping the Penrite sponsorship there as well. Good to see. Look at the wheel work as well. Bit of handful coming down the mountain as well. Just got to be nice and smooth through this part of it. And you can see every now and again just has a little bit of a wiggle, a snap oversteer. Just the bumps in the circuit will settle that in its own right. Or they'll make that happen. And Boak's a little bit wide of the hairpin there, but they've both given the wall a rub on the exit there.
He's got the eyes on, doesn't he? And look, he's right in the wheel tracks now as he pulls towards the inside. It's committing very early to taking that inside lane at the chase. And Phil Boak's going to be aware of that car on these insides. They come through side by side into the kink. Or Braxton had to back out of that one, and you can see the flash of the brake lights just as they managed to squeeze their way through the chase. In the background as well, Steve Burko made a nice move around the outside of Nathan Higginson into the chase.
Yeah, just saw that on the tapping on the backside as well. That was a very nice move from Burko. And on top of that, Kiwi, Burko has actually found some pace overnight as well. Actually, in the warm-up session, he actually managed to get into, I think it might have been a low 6 or a high 5. He actually has found a good amount of pace, and I think he's a lot more comfortable in that car than he was in qualifying last night.
Well, that's great, and that's good news for him and good news for the team. Qualifying to race setups can be vastly different. Qualifying, you're running on low fuel loads. You know, you've got to put all your stress on the tyres to get them as hot as possible. Here, you can be a bit more conservative, more fuel on the car, be more comfortable. So it looks like they've got a setup that works for them now. I was just having a look as well. that battle for second and third, Lion Mitch has pulled out a good 3.5 second gap now.
Yeah, he has actually. I've actually just noticed that as well. You're spot on. He's actually gotten on with the business of it. So Stenberg's still going along out in front and has got 7.3 seconds on the field, which is a monster margin at this point in time in the race. And then Lewis Wedding's holding up Tim Redmond. There they are, just flashed into back a shot there as Mitch comes down through the S's. And then Brunswick is just tucked in there as well. Will Devonish and Peter Savage. Savage at the wheel of that car. Just quite nicely tucked in behind them as well. Oh, a little bit of a mid-corner moment for Brunswick through the dipper on exit.
And these guys have been quite energised. It hasn't been just holding stations. Lewis has had to be defending as well from Redmond, who's been defending from Brunswick, who's defending from Savage. But we've got word coming through from the live chat that Peter Savage is having frame rate issues where the race is dipping to 5 or 10 frames a second. So we've seen this happen to Peter Savage a few times throughout the Enduro Cup and throughout some of the ASR series. So he's really struggling with this issue, this computer issue once again, and that's why he might be dropping off the tail of this group just a little bit.
That sort of says to me that they're going to be looking to do a driver change as early as they can, I think, and probably try and keep Pete as fresh as they possibly can. And maybe he might even end up only doing the minimum laps, like as bare minimum as he possibly can. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an early driver change there. There's actually an early pit caller as well. John McDonald, I just noticed in the pits. There he is at the back of shot. So that's an early stop, and I believe that'll probably be for some damage repairs. So they've actually gone a lap down, and Brad Severs is probably only about a sector away from going a lap down to the race leader as well. But that being said, before we come back to your point there is a little bit of something interesting that we need to talk about when we look at the race strategy. Last year, the maximum fuel windows were in the 12 to 13 lap range. Now that was because the soft tyre was invoked, you were going a lot faster, you were burning a lot more fuel. Harder tyre today, the range is about 12 or 13 to 15 laps in some drivers. I'm actually amazed that some drivers have been able to make it 15 laps.
Sorry,
we'll come back to that in just a tick.
I'm going to interrupt you. Brad Severs is facing backwards up the cutting, so not sure where
he's actually at the elbow.
Oh, the elbow, sorry, yeah. He's managed to get it going again, but that was a hairy moment where he was facing literally uphill at the elbow.
Yeah, so he's gotten going again there. And what happened to Brad Severs? He's actually done that fairly early, I think, as well. What's he done here? Coming down we just had to rewind it back for a touch, and just lost the rear end. And yeah, he was 45, 90 degrees to the parallel to the track as well. So, and then tried to go forward. That's not what you got to do. And then got reversed and managed to get going again.
Yeah, lucky you managed to bug out of that before the leaders came through.
Yeah, he's now probably, just the length of Conrod ahead of the leaders now, so that worked out quite well for him.
No, he's less than that. He's probably about the length between the exit of the chase and the final corner.
Oh, there he is, yeah.
Flood.
You might have heard me squeaking in the background. That was because I was watching Hans Brunswick go around the outside of Tim Redmond into the chase, and he's actually made that move now, has Brunswick. So he's now up to 4th place. They've actually dropped off the back of Lewis Wedding just a little bit this lap. I'll just check the lap times quickly. It was a 2:07.1 for Tim Redmond last lap around, and actually a significant loss of time all in that last sector. So I wonder if Tim's made a mistake coming down the elbow, and that's compromised his run. But yeah, Hans with a great move around the outside, he now slots into 4th place.
I would say he probably had a poor exit off the elbow because his sector 2 time wasn't that bad relative to Brunswick, like they were within a couple of hundredths of each other. But his sector 3 time is very much down. It was 7/10 slower than Brunswick. So I'd say he's probably had a poor exit off the elbow. He's been straight line compromised, and Brunswick has just said, thank you very much, I'll sit in your draft and I'll go the long way around. So Tim would have made it difficult for him, and Hans has pulled the move off very well.
Very nicely done.
All right, everyone's been really well behaved so far.
Yeah, well, everyone's settled into the stint quite well, I think, for the moment.
Yeah, which is great to see. And we're probably, 6 laps away from our first round of pit stops getting underway?
Yep, there is. There's another move just noticed off screen here for RSM Latino with a nice move on Cam Rutledge down at Griffins. And it looks like Lockie Lock was trying to follow him through, but he can't do that up here at the cutting. So that's a spot for Cuz. And that's 3 spots for him since the drop of the green flag as well. They, of course, made one up through the John McDonald Ben Hall Mustang starting in the pit lane. So that was one. There was another one there that he just made by passing Cam Rutledge. on the road. And I'm also just trying to work out who else has slipped backwards that they would have passed. I think the Lockie Lock and Justin Cecil Mustang would be the other one that's at the back of this queue here. I think they started behind them as well. So there's a couple of spots made, but he's got a little bit of work to do to catch up to the back of Freakish, who's 7 seconds up the road.
Cam Rutledge has dropped 7 spots since the start of the race. That's I'm surprised by that.
I'm thinking this is a fuel mileage race for them at the moment. They may be trying to take it on one less stop than everybody else, which will come back to that strategy argument. Now, actually, there is a little bit of strategy starting to play out here because Lewis Wedding has brought the 5 car to the lane for the team has been. So this is early.
And Braxton Stancliffe's in as well. So I can give a go at explaining this. Today, it's basically going to be a 5-stop race. I think if you try and stretch out 6 laps, you're going to stretch out 6 laps somewhere across the course of this race. So if you want to get it home in 4 stops. And I think that doesn't really match up with the co-driver minimums. That doesn't quite fit nicely. So I think what Lewis Wedding is doing here, and the team has been here, is getting out of the train, trying to get off onto the alternate strategy so that way they can land their car at lap 66 optimally on their fuel strategy and get to the end of the race. So basically taking a short sprint now.
Driver change as well. Brendan Ross has gotten into that car, so he's on the move too. You see Braxton Stancliffe still stationary there. I think Braxton, I expect him probably to stay in that car and do another stint, but we'll wait to see what happens there. But that's the first driver change as well. Now, coming back to the strategy argument, there was 6 stops last year because of how everything panned out. Fuel mileage became a very, very difficult prospect with the 2020 MHRT Bathurst 500, and there was a splash and dash short fill that was supposed to happen if the whole thing went green flag running. Of course, we ended up with a red flag situation, which changed all of that. But the numbers were going to suggest that you would have had to do a splash and dash at some point, which is still, in theory, possible if you can't make that 15-lap sort of deficit. That 15-lap distance. If you can get to 13 laps on a tank of fuel, you can actually still do it on 5 stops. It's not a huge issue, but it's when you start doing less than 13 laps on a stint that you start to end up in a bit of fuel trouble and you need help from a safety car.
You may have heard Flood and I making a bit of ooh in the background. We'll come back to those strategy things in a sec. Brad Severs went around at the elbow again and actually had to wait for a lot of cars to go by. He's on the move now. But yeah, that strategy points. It's very interesting to see how this will play out. I was just thinking, Flood, as well, is there any risk with pitting now?
What do you mean risk?
Like, if a safety car comes out around now and you've done your pit stop?
No, because I think the window here is basically from lap 5 to lap 15 if you want to make that first stop. So I've done the maths, backtracking from the end of the race to get to 5 stops, landing at the critical lap number. You can come in as early as lap 5 and then do, lap 20, 35, 50, 66, and 81. So you basically are running to the limit on your fuel each stint from here. So I think it's pretty comfortable. And the interesting thing for me is how they split the driver time and the driver minimum laps throughout the rest of this race. And I've just realized now that I should have been recording that. And so I'm going to quickly scribble down some numbers while this is all happening.
Yeah, so those guys came in at the end of lap 9, start of lap 10 for Lewis Wedding, Brendan Ross, and for Braxton Stancliffe, Josh Andrew. And just noticed as well, Freakish is in the lane for Kiwi Sim Sports team. Are they Tenifo? No, they're Tipua. So Kiwi Sim Sports team Tipua. And Navy's actually handed over to Peter Thrower as well. So there's a driver change there as well on at the end of lap 10, start of lap 11 for car 56. Just keeping an eye as well on what Brendan Ross is actually up to lap time wise, since he has been, I guess, a benchmark here. He was in that battle with Tim Redmond, Pete Savage, Hans Brunswick. And Lai Mitch had sort of nicked off up the road, so he was well clear of it. But I think with Brendan Ross doing the bulk of the laps for the team has-been's car number 5, he probably will do the bulk of the laps today. That's my expectation anyway. But I'll be keen to see what sort of lap times he's producing on the new rubber relative to everybody around him. So 53.411 for the first proper flying lap through Sector 1. That's only 0.3 of a second slower than what the race leader did the last time around. Race leader Kurt Stenberg actually had a really poor last sector too, I just noticed.
That's because he's coming to the pits, along with Lime Mitch and Tim Redmond.
Okay, so I think they're now potentially realising what's going on here, and there's a risk of them potentially being undercut. So you can see, yeah, there's a bit of thing. And this is an interesting dilemma here too, guys. So the AAR Mustang car 13 is ahead in pit bays in sequence with everybody. Here comes the Tim Redmond car and Scott Stancliffe, and you see the pit bays are very, very close together here with how this is all going. Now, with regards to this car on screen here, do we need to start doing our village people dance and everything where we sort of keep our fingers and everything crossed that if they're doing a driver change, it's going according to plan?
Yes, please, fingers crossed. Fingers, arms, legs, toes, and eyes crossed.
Okay.
Everything crossed.
All right, so Stenberg out, no driver change there. The Ujit Mishra and Lime Mitch car is in the lane as well, and they've made a driver change, and Redmond stayed in.
So it's all getting very complicated very quickly here at the moment. We're all trying to just keep on top of everything.
Now, Brendan Ross has got some traffic here. And look at the margin. Actually, that's really worked well for Brendan Ross in terms of gaining time over the Lime Mitch Mishra car. But importantly, there's some traffic there in the form of Matt Cecil, who's got, it's not traffic, he's actually on that lap, so that's fine. But in terms of actually cutting down the margin, that's really worked well for the team Has-Beens Mustang. They've eroded that margin significantly by being on the new rubber, and I think if they had to come in a lap later for car 13, they would have been jumped.
Yeah, well, that's very well done. We've called them the wily old foxes. Team Has-Beens. They're not really Has-Beens anymore. They have been very astute with their strategy plays, and that's
big Scott McLaughlin moment for Ujit Mishra on the outlap. Cold tyres, starting pressures not where they need to be. They need to feverishly get them up to temp, and he nearly threw that away at McPhillamy Park and Skyline.
Very lucky there. Very, very lucky not to end up in the gravel trap at the exit of the McPhillamy Park there. That has brought Brendan Ross right onto Mishra's tail as they come down Conrod straight, right in the wheel tracks here, right in the slipstream, these two Mustangs. And Mishra's already looking for that defensive line as Ross swings to the inside. They come through the kink at the chase. Mishra using every little bit of the apron to try and hold on to that position. Dives down the inside, but can't go deep enough under brakes. So Brendan Ross and the team that's a net gain for them. They are in effectively a second place at the moment with Hans Brunswick now in the pits, as well as Phil Boak, and that's complicated there. They've actually made contact in the pit lane because of the angle that Brunswick has had to exit around. So that was very complex for those guys, and that's actually going to cost them a fair bit of time.
Are they handing over as well, or what's going on there? Because Brunswick's already on the move.
Brunswick stayed in the car.
Okay.
As has Peter Savage.
And it's a change here. Brenton Foley's actually got to watch the rejoin here too, because here comes the Turbo and Cam Rutledge car 51. And then Matt Cecil is in as well. Not sure if he'll hand over to Taipan there, but very well negotiated. There's Burko and Kemp, and is there a change there as well? There is. Darren Kemp gets into car number 7.
And we've seen the 074 come in as well, so Brenton Foley's in the car still. Immediately
going to the weaving to try and get the front tyre temperature up because he knows that he needs it. He's only got a limited amount of time to do it. He's got to do it before the hump in Mountain Straight. A little bit of a brake lock up as well, but it shouldn't be that bad. It didn't look all that terrible. But
Kemp almost ran straight on there as well.
Yeah, Kemp's dropped a little bit of time here, and then the team, Tanifa car behind them, which has got Cheese at the wheel in behind them as well. Now, they've also stopped as well by the look of it too, because their last lap was a 3:02, so they stopped a lap ago relative to 2 of the 3 guys in front of them.
So I think everyone now, apart from the Roadie Brad Severs machine, and the number 23 have made their first stop.
Correct. I think, yeah, Roadie and Brad Severs are yet to make a stop for the first time. And car 23, which is the car 23, Matt Cecil and Taipan, the AP Sim Sport Mustang has been in.
It has been in.
Yeah, so I believe there's only one driver and pairing yet to make a stop, and it's the car that's currently 1 lap down.
So everyone's staying on a relatively similar strategy, apart from John McDonald, it seems. But he, being where he is in the place, so all the front runners matching strategy at this stage.
Yeah, well, I think with John McDonald and Ben Hall coming in to take the very, very early stop, that they're almost probably committing to a 6-stop strategy from here. They're expecting a safety car at some point, and they're getting that short fill stop out of the way, and then they're going to try and run it based on sort of like 12, 13 lap stint. So they're probably going to maybe make a 13 lapper here or there, but I think they're probably going to be doing 12 lap stints from here. It's actually an interesting point too, because with the 12 lap stints, you can do 12, 12 and 12 and get up to 36, which will clear your driver minimum quite comfortably if you base it on those numbers. I mean, if you were talking the 15 lap strategy, which we haven't seen anybody get close to 15 laps on fuel just yet, the highest we've seen I think is 13, you'll still be able to get your 5 stops in, but it just sort of complicates if you want to get one driver to their bare minimums, and which we saw at a number of the 3 races prior to this one, and get them over and done with. You then end up with a long stint. Rossi gives a Waller up. I don't believe we're going to see too many drivers take the option of doing big long stints, getting driver minimum numbers out of the way, and then having another driver in for the full run to the flag. I just don't think it's realistically achievable in a race of this magnitude. I think there's going to be more than one driver swap in the race.
Yeah, certainly, and because it's a long stint to try and get to the end of the race from lap 30, 33, that'll be effectively more than half the race just on your own. So I think that's a wise decision to maybe do a swap and a swap back, just to sort of keep people fresh and more concentrated throughout the race.
And it looks like the 15 lap theory that people were talking about has sort of been confirmed a bit by Lewis Wedding in the chat, that there's no way that that's going to happen without the safety car intervention. So realistically, we're looking at 13 laps as the maximum distance you can get at green flag running, which if you do the math from the very beginning, 13, 26, 39, 52, and then 65, and then you're still going to end up getting to 78, you're going to need a splash and dash at the end.
Unless you see a safety car.
Unless you see a safety car, yeah. So there's a lot to play out here. So there's some people that are committing really, really early to the point of thinking that a safety car is going to come out. And then there's some people that are just sort of going, you know what, we've got to do it based on green flag running and go with the flow. I think the go with the flow strategy is probably the way to go right now with, nearly 15 laps in the books and, no sign of the HSV Camaro safety car just yet. G's on screen. He's moved ahead of Darren Kemp in the last lap or so, and he's actually pulled away from him quite comfortably as well. So he now becomes the lead Nissan in the field. These guys, remember, paired last year in the Transmech Nissan Altima. Same car number, different livery this year, same sponsor though. And they finished 4th last year in all of that battle. They were the lead Nissan home, and 4th, just missed the podium with all the late race drama with blown engine for Thomas McMillan. And they weren't far off John McDonald and Zach Ross.
It was a bit of a frantic end to last year's race, but a few really good performances at the very end. These guys have not had the most impressive run, but they've kept themselves clean and out of trouble, and they currently sit a very respectable 7th in the championship after a 5th place result at the race 1 at the Gold Coast. So they've done well, and they're a team that sort of keeps themselves out of trouble and will move up the grid. They've already moved up 2 positions, Cheese and NZ Snipes. Hoping for the best for them. And in fact, the next 2 Nissans are immediately behind them on track and engaged in a bit of a battle, Darren Kemp and Peter Thrower.
Yeah, they are indeed. Here they are, right on cue as they come past the skyline and start the descent. It's a new race fastest lap flashes up for Kurt Stenberg with 2:05.118. I was about to just remark too that I had noticed that Brendan Ross was a little bit quicker on the previous lap around than Kurt Stenberg, so that was lap 14. And Stenberg has just lifted his pace in that last lap in response. There was a purple middle sector in there for Stenberg, and he was quicker than Ross in all sectors, so that margin now sits at 12.7 seconds. So it's sort of stabilised a little bit after swinging back and forth a little bit, also with Ross and Wedding coming in and making that slightly earlier stop with how this is all panned out.
I think we just saw a change for position between the Nissans as well.
Yeah, we did. So Darren Kemp has been now passed by Peter Thrower. So the 2 Kiwi Nissans now move themselves to be the 2 lead Nissans out of the 3. There is only 3 in the field. and good showing so far from everybody. Good showing from the whole field at the moment. Everybody's relatively clean. The passes have been well constructed, well executed. No real dramas apart from a couple of moments where there's been Line Mitch up at the cutting, having his moment, and Brad Severs having 1 or 2 moments at the elbow. But for the moment, green flag running is the order of the day, and no real sign of the safety car just yet. So we were a bit, like I said, at the beginning of the day, we were sort of looking at this thinking that the safety car might make an appearance, but there's a very good chance that this was going to be a very, very fast 500 and possibly a lot of green flag running.
Yep. And we're in the phase of the race now where everyone's got their own little bit of racetrack, apart from Ujit Mishra and who's just past John McDonald, but everyone's got their own little patch of racetrack. Now I can just get down to the job of setting consistent lap times and making the best play for where they want to be in the last hour of the race. As they say in commentary for the big run all the time, buy your ticket to the last hour. And that's what a lot of these guys are now doing.
Yeah, correct. They're sort of looking a little bit further ahead here as we now get into the 4.8s. So a 2:04.883 is very, very close to last year's lap record. I'm actually just going to have to go and double check that just to actually see what that actually was from last year, because I had it on the back of my mind, but I've just had to draw on a mental blank for a few seconds.
We did have it in the pre-race, but we've all forgotten it. I just want to, while you're doing that, Nether, I just want to bring attention to Peter Savage, who has seemed to have found something on this set of tyres. He's setting 205s at the moment. Last lap was a 206.2, but consistently in the 205s prior to this on this set of tyres. And he's eclipsed Hans Brunswick in the All-Australian Races machine and is now hunting down Ujit Mishra. Definitely a difference in pace compared to where he was at the beginning of the first stint, where he dropped down quite significantly. So I think he's going to be the big mover and shaker of this stint.
Also, interesting move here. Tim Redman's just coming for his second pit stop.
Ooh, that is very interesting.
There's a little bit of a concern, I think, as well. Maybe there's a recurrence of some of the dramas that we've seen.
And that's a driver change.
And Scott Stancliffe, thankfully, is actually in the car, so this has been executed this time around. So Stancliffe out, and he comes out behind RSM Latino and behind Darren Kemp, but ahead of the Lockie Lock and Justin Cecil Mustang. But got ahead of steam, but he's got to be really careful here on the cold tyres and the low pressures that he just gets himself into the zone before trying to make a move. Here's a little bit of a lock-up ahead of him as well, and I think maybe Scott might have had a small lock-up on the approach to Griffins as well.
The problem is now if he's trying to get down the inside of the Latino into the cutting.
That's a bit ambitious. That's trying to take your opportunities when they exist. He's given the wall a rub on the approach up to Sulman Park as well on the left-hand side there. Sort of dropped the wheels right in the gutter and sort of just pulled the car into the wall a little bit, but just a little bit of side damage, a little bit of a scrape. No sort of harm, no foul here. But now it's a one-track group. You can't stick it down the inside here at Skyline. Then you just got to hold station.
And this will be frustrating for him because their strategy would have been come out ahead of these guys, get your 6-lap stint out of the way, and makes it easy to the end of the race. But this is going to cost them buckets of time.
Yeah, it will cost them buckets of time at the moment as they continue to duke this one out. Now he's got to get a good exit here. Now Cuz was slightly compromised on exit. That's the wrong camera. That's the camera we want. And see, Cuz is trying to get the draft here from Darren Kemp because he was a little bit compromised off the exit as well. And Stancliffe probably has the best run. Though he's getting a double toe here as well as they run up to the fastest part of the circuit, closing in on the big magical 300 mark, but not quite. Kemp gets very loose on the curb through there. Stancliffe gives a little bit of a nudge there, and I think he's going to have to probably I'm not sure if he have to redress that one there. That looked like he might have just unsettled Cuz at the last critical moment there. And now Kemp goes defensive as Cuz tries to fire it back down the inside at Murray's, but for the moment Stancliffe is through, but there was a little bit of contact there at the critical moment.
That was all a little messy, and I was a little scared because we've seen redresses go wrong at that part of the track before. I just thought we might have seen a similar thing if there was a redress, but no harm, no foul in the end.
No, not at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised to see the race management channel light up with a request to take a look at that one, but probably looked at after the race, I would imagine, with how things are going. It was a 204.811. Just for record, is the race lap record from last year. 204.811. And we go back to the results moment to 204.883. So only about 7/10 away. So
I've also seen a driver change for Braxton Sandcliffe, just by the way, now with Josh Andrews in that car.
So car down in 14th place at the moment on the standings.
I just had a quick look at the replay for that moment for RSM Latino coming out of the chase. I don't actually think there was contact. I think Latino just took a little too much curb and a little too much right foot, which is what unsettled him. So if there was contact, it would have been the tiniest little, like a pinky nudge on the back of that car.
Okay.
So I think Stancliffe's in the clear, and he will be looking to make moves. Speaking of making moves, Peter Savage has eclipsed Ujit Mishra, who's now under fire from Hans Brunswick for 4th place.
Yeah, so the team cars are now starting to sort themselves out here as well. And I think this will probably be a bit of a question as to which car of these is the fastest, and I'd imagine it's probably Brunswick behind. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see an executed swap here at some point. They are in the same Discord channel as each other, all 4 drivers, so there will be a little bit of a question mark being posed, I think, to car 13 to say, look, if you've not got the pace and you can't lift it, we need to go with Savage here, as he very nearly threw it away like his teammate did very early in the race as well at the cutting edge at Mishra. That was a bit of a moment.
Very, very close run thing there for Mishra and for Savage, but they will play on.
Play on for just a little bit longer, but yeah, he's going to be very, very careful, I think, here at the moment, Ujit Mishra. As we bring him up here on the onboard. Look at the wheel work. I love this shot, gentlemen. I love having the car going round, and you see every time he turns the wheel, the thing's perfectly in sync.
Ooh,
and the safety car has been called for. So this is we suspect to be one. Who is it?
Aaron Rutledge, I think.
Lock on the entry of turn 1.
Yeah,
looks like
Rutledge is in the sand trap. No, he's out at the chase. So Rutledge has had a moment, and
there was something at turn 1 as well. Lock and Darren Kemp coming together.
Yep. So Rutledge just ran off at the chase, and then there was another issue along the line as well. So this will trigger the first intervention for the HSV Camaro safety car for the day, and it comes at the end of lap 19.
And we're seeing pit stops from Kurt Stenberg and Brendan Ross has come in as well.
Yep, and Cam Rutledge, no surprise, coming as well. And the 2 AAR Mustangs are in as well. So now, is there going to be a change here for Brunswick? Or Mishra's had a little bit of a moment as well, sort of on the approach to the entrance. Who went through? Pete Savage went through.
Savage went through?
So this is going to be a very complex little period of the race as we all try to figure out what everyone's strategy is. Yeah, Savage has gone through. And I think that's a good choice based on where his tyre pace was. He was very, very quick in that stint and will continue to be quick. So he's now taking track position. Kurt Stenberg stays in the car. Brendan Ross, it looks like, will stay in the car. It looks like Hans Brunswick will also stay in. Just waiting for these cars to pull out. They're getting fooled up to the absolute brim. Yes, Ross and Brunswick out together. Almost a move made in the pits there for Brunswick, but he does get past Ujit Mishra. So all those that changed around. That's a net gain for Brunswick and Lachlan Burke. Brenton Foley also in, as is Nathan Higginson, and it looks like Cheese as well. So Foley has made his way out.
Just got the camera turn 1 here on the pit exit as well. You see Stancliffe and Redmond have gone through as well, so they haven't stopped.
Yep.
So they now slot into 6th place, so they've made a gain, but they only stopped a couple of laps ago as well, so there was no point in them coming in again. There goes Nathan Higginson, so he hasn't changed over to Daniel Cox. He's just going to get out ahead of Darren Kemp as well, so that's important for them. There goes the NZ Snipes and Cheese car 420. Cheese is in that car still. And then 3 more cars in the lane. So here comes car 56. Peter Thrower remains at the wheel for that one. RSM Latino remains at the helm of car 50, the RSM and Blackshaw Smash Repairs entry. And then I think Justin Cecil may be about to take over from Lockie Lock. No, Lockie Lock stayed in the car. Right, and then there's the late car coming in, of course, is Brad Severs.
Brad Severs.
Okay. So safety car is on the circuit, and Pete Savage has caught it down here at the chase. Now, importantly, there's no lap traffic between the safety car and the race leader, or the current race leader, that is. And 3 cars are trapped a lap down. So John McDonald is a lap down, but he should actually, I believe he's going to get the lucky dog for this one. And it means that Cam Rutledge, who's now a lap down, and Brad Severs actually is a lap down, but he actually might just get out ahead of the safety car, and he does. So he'll be able to catch the train at the back. And then Rutledge, who was 17th, is actually in the traffic at the moment. He's actually, him and John McDonald are currently, well, they're the 3rd and 4th cars in the queue. There you can see John McDonald just sort of ranging up in the shot behind Kurt Stenberg. And I'm not sure if he's going to maybe come in, maybe top the fuel off, and maybe just drop to the back of the queue, which I would actually say is a smart thing to do. Actually, no, they've got the lucky dog. There they go.
Yeah. Straight through.
That's done. So straight through. So that's good news for them. So they'll get back onto the lead lap, and that's a smart place to do it. Get it over and done with. Drivers were told in the driver's briefing that it's not an option. If you get it, you have to use it. There was actually somebody at one of the Gold Coast safety cars that actually didn't execute the lucky dog, and they ended up having to, they actually had a penalty that needed to be cleared, and a couple of others got penalties as well that needed to be cleared. So they've been told, you get it, you've got to do it.
So just while you're talking about that now, the John McDonald, who, as we may mention, had the lucky dog, then immediately put it in the wall at Griffin's Bend.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no. So he's back on track, trying to recover as much time as he can. I wonder if he's picked up any damage for that, because that would be quite humorous. A quick note, I think every car took a pit stop in that safety car except for Peter Savage and Scott Stancliffe and Josh Andrew, who's sitting in 10th place. Now they, for Stancliffe and Andrew, they had pit before that pit cycle, but the interesting one for me is Peter Savage, because Savage has taken track position here, but he's now not got the buffer of cars behind him to sort of stave off Kurt Stenberg and Brendan Ross. So that's going to be the interesting one for me. They pit on lap 12, so they'd be getting close to the end of their pit sequence anyway.
Yeah, they're going to have to come in almost when the safety car does.
Almost, yes. Just by the way, we also had Darren Kemp come in under this safety car, so he's coming at the end of lap 20.
Yeah, so that's a top off as well for those guys, and they're on the lead lap anyway, so they'll be able to sort that out. I'm wondering, by virtue of Savage staying out, this is starting to be good for the fuel mileage window. Oh, there's a little silly checkup that the safety car unfortunately does on the exit of the elbow. That's an unfortunate thing that the admin team haven't been able to figure out why it's been doing that. I'm wondering if this sort of bodes well from a fuel mileage point of view, that they can actually get Savage to a minimum and get him out of the car as close to that 33 laps completed as possible and Devonish in.
For 48 laps on his own, that's a...
It's a tall order. It's a tall order and a very big ask.
I think the suspicion here is that you take Savage out at the next pit stop, put Will in, and then put Savage in later for one more stint. I think that's what they're going to try and do, because if they get to, say, lap 25, 26, that means that Savage only has to do another 10 laps, which is significantly more manageable, especially if he's suffering frame rate drops compared to 12, 13, 14.
Now, they'll be working the numbers on this as well. Now, the other people that need to work the numbers out pretty quickly is John McDonald and Ben Hall, because they've actually come in as well as having the lucky dog. And the safety car's come in, so this is a bit of an issue for them. They've come in right when the safety car was supposed to go, and there are a couple of penalties now being issued, which means that they will be cleared by the admin crew, because their drivers have been told to be in position that they should be. And McDonald's going to come out of the lane right as we're going back to green.
This is going to be very, very complicated, but we are on a full restart here. Peter Savage leads the field away and will bring us up Mountain Straight. You can see McDonald in the distance, and already Stenberg is right on the tail of Savage, as Cam Rutledge in the background has the angry train of cars behind him. But it's Stenberg already swinging to the outside up Mountain Straight. It looks like Savage has just entirely let him go through.
That'll be tyres at play, I think, there as well. The old rubber and the new rubber conspiring against each other. Stenberg's a little bit wide of the optimal line as well, so he wasn't right down to the apex for Griffins either, so he very nearly was a bee's dick away from going into the wall at Griffin's Bend there. with not getting all the right tyre temperature and everything up to standard before commencing that really difficult and tricky turn in for turn 2. And he gave the wall a rub there on the approach to Silman Park as well.
A bit further back was getting a bit willing between those Mustangs as well.
So
yeah, it's an absolute parade of Mustangs in the background. Ross, Brunswick, Mishra filling out the top 5. Then it's Scott Stancliffe. They've made a great jump up the field after their early pit stops. Brenton Foley, Nathan Higginson, Cheese will sit in 9th place, and Josh Andrews completes the 10. Well done by Cam Rutledge, by the way, just to get out of the mix there and allow everyone to get past him without any issues.
And that was one of the shorter safety car periods as well. The safety car is actually set for a minimum of 2 laps and then a maximum of 4. So anywhere between 2 and 4 is how many laps the thing will do. There goes McDonald. There goes Stenberg, Savage and Ross. There's your top 3, and they're approaching McDonald and co. I'm actually surprised that they came in and elected to change tyres and top off, because they've now wound up in a situation where the race leader's basically right on their hammer again. And
I don't think they had a choice.
No,
they actually had another crash at the elbow. So
yeah. And Stenberg's
another one.
Yeah, and Stenberg's managed to get through that incident in that case. So there goes McDonald again, so letting all the field through. So he is going to be the first car still 1 lap down, and he will be in position to get the lucky dog again should another safety car come out.
Willing stuff in the back half of the field. Josh Andrews lost 3 positions since the restart. He's now sandwiched between Lachlan Locke and RSM Latino as they head towards Hell Corner. I think that's a bit of a disappointing result for them. They'd been looking to make their way up the field, especially with Braxton putting in some great laps in the early part of the race. But Andrews got the run on RSM Latino. Now maybe he's just had to take a little while to get his tyres up to temp. And he's going to try and go around the outside into Griffin's Bend, and RSM Latino doesn't let him do it. Goes very deep under brakes. There's a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a tap.
Trying for the over and under here, but it's not going to come off. The over and under is not going to come off at that part of the circuit. But very, very brave move by the Penrite and Ryco Racing entry. And Cuz hangs on for just a little bit longer. Driving very, very well, actually, RSM Latino. They've moved that car up to 12th, so they've moved up 4 spots since the drop of the green flag, and Steve Warwick yet to get into that car. Now, who else in the field has not? There's been about half the field has made a driver change so far. Stenberg, Savage, they haven't made a change at all just yet. Brunswick hasn't made a change, so that's 3.
Nathan
Higginson is the next one. Cheese and Matt Cecil, they all haven't changed, so there's 6.
And NZ Snipe started that car for Cheese, so that is a change.
Yep, so Higginson, Matt Cecil, RSM Latino, that's 6. Lockie Locke has been in that car since the drop of the green flag, and so
Cam Rutledge.
And I think just John McDonald's been in that car as well.
Ben Hall's. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Yes, so there's about 7 or 8 drivers, and of course Brad Rode and Brad Severs. So there's about half the field hasn't yet made a driver change.
So all very complicated at the moment.
Have a look at this, down into the chase. Peter Thrower goes down around the other way of Matt Cecil, and that's a good pass by Peter Thrower as well. Moves himself up to 10th place, went on the left-hand side on the approach to the chase, so that meant he was on the inside line for turn 21, and snaffles away 10th position from Matt Cecil in the AP Sim Sport Mustang, who's a little bit wide at the final corner there, gets a little bit of a nudge from Cuz on the exit, and Cuz might be up the inside here, might be another position for car 50, and it is if he can make the apex, and it's a little bit awkward on exit though too. It's compromised them both, and it allowed Lockie Locke just to sneak a little bit closer, but at the moment Cuz very, very opportunistic pass at turn 1.
While that was happening, Peter Savage has come into the pit lane. He just waited to see if they do the driver swap now.
And while you're watching that, Kiwi, I'll just quickly mention that Josh Andrew had a moment over the top of Skyline, hit the wall in the S's, which is why he wasn't a part of that battle with Cuz and Matt Cecil and Lockie Locke as they approached the chase.
And Pete Savage has stayed in the car.
Yeah, there was actually a comment. I just noticed that there was some frame rate issues for Savage under the safety car as well, so that's almost unheard of considering the game runs a little bit slower at that point. You can see now that with the pass done by Cuz on Matt Cecil is starting to... he's just given the wall a whack there as well, that Cuz has started to check out. Flood.
I had eyes on Brenton Foley and that battle for 3rd place coming down the mountain, and Brenton Foley was four-wheel drifting it down the S's. If we've got a chance to grab a replay of that, I'm sure that will entertain the crowd because the way I don't understand how he managed to gather that up. Truth be told,
here we
we
go.
are on the right.
There it is. Yeah, big moment right there. Just a sideways snap right through the middle of the S's, and wasn't as Foley-esque as we know Foley can be, but it was pretty bloody good.
Well, I mean, it's. You don't really want to be going sideways down the mountain, Steve. It's not healthy.
No, but I have seen a few drivers taking some of those unusual lines, like actually sort of letting the back end of the car sort of drift out and then catching it on the opposite side as well. So a bit of an interesting sort of debate as to different schools of thought for how things drive. Now, let's talk about championship. I know it's a little bit early to bring it up here, gentlemen. The top 3 cars in the championship currently running top 3 in this race, and this is precisely the scenario that I was depicting a little bit earlier, as we see there's a pass potentially being made here by Scott Stancliffe on Ujit Mishra at turn number 2. And he was far enough up the inside there, but Mishra sort of made him earn this one, and he's going to just hold on, I think, here for the cutting. Scott's going to try to switch back, but there's no space there, and settles down for the lap. Sorry, coming back to the championship battle, Hans Brunswick and Lockie Burke, current points leaders in the Enduro Cup, currently sit in the bare minimum position that they need to be to retain the lead at the end of this one. 3rd. Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding, currently 2nd in the standings, are currently 2nd overall. That wouldn't be enough for them to retain that spot for Enduro Cup. They would end up being bumped down to 3rd. Kurt Stenberg and Luke Rosell are currently 1st in this race. And they would jump up to 2nd with the 300 points on offer. So it would still be, and right now, it's advantage car 44 in the overall Enduro Cup standings, with thanks to Penrite and Ryko.
But only just. And
only just.
Still got plenty of racing to go, and with how quick Scott Stancliffe and Brenton Foley are looking at the tail end of this All-Australian Races headed group, it might not be that way for long, especially with Brendan Ross, by the way, clearing out at the front of that group and making sure that Kurt Stenberg isn't having it all his own way. He's just keeping Kurt honest, making sure that Kurt can't make any little mistake, like a little slide out of the chase there for Kurt. As now Foley has a look at Stancliffe further back. It's all going off here. This battle for second is third is very energized.
Oh, he might have him down here at turn 3. Stancliffe had a really awkward slip on the gear change at turn 22, and Foley should be, I was about to say, might be down here in a heartbeat at turn 23, but couldn't quite get there enough. Stancliffe made him earn it. He was a little bit wide, and here goes Foley again now with a great run off of the last corner. And is he running a wrap around the outside? He does, and he leaves just enough space for Stancliffe there as well. A little bit of tagging on the way out of 21, but Foley's through. Great pass.
Well done.
He worked out beautifully.
Yeah, he worked Stancliffe over big time for that one. It all started from when, as the car didn't sit nicely for Stancliffe on the gear change at turn 22, as that's the last right-hander before you run under the Beyond Blue Bridge and down to the final corner. And the car just had an awkward moment where the tail end just sort of wagged the dog for a moment, and Foley was all over him.
And interestingly as well, you talked about the championship battle there. I think as well, what works well for the current leaders, the 44, is their teammates currently in 4th place as well.
Yeah, they're almost like an insurance policy to them right now, aren't they?
Yes, and we saw it, those of you who follow DTM saw the shenanigans there last week. I'm still somewhat salty about.
Oh, McDonald around at the cutting. Sorry, guys. McDonald around at the cutting. I was just flicking through the field just to see what was going on. He's around, and we've got a localised yellow for the moment while they're waiting on the field to go through, and I think we're going to stay green. Yes, we're very lucky to stay green.
Yes. He was able to fix spin that around, which is actually very difficult at that part of the track.
Yeah, and he was facing the wrong way as well, which was even worse. And he had to wait for Cam Rutledge to go through. He had to wait for another car to go through as well. Now he's got the blue flags as well for Darren Kemp behind him. He'll have to find a spot to let him through.
In the end, no damage done to the race, thankfully. So we're just looking through back up to the front of the field. We had, that was a very squirrely moment coming into the braking zone for the chase for Ujit Mishra.
Yeah, he was very narrow actually there.
Yeah, I don't know if he just got it a bit sideways coming through the kink, but not how you want to tackle that corner. But yeah, having that car there is a great insurance policy. So it's just right at this stage of the race, just keep it consistent. If we come down to the last 10 laps, you can use them as a bit of a pick for anyone who's behind, or also you can use them as a bit of a, hey, can you just get out of the way, please, if he's ahead.
Now, Flood, I think this is, it might not be a fair comment to make here, but I'm going to make it anyway. But while the two AAR Mustangs are probably running very, very similar setups, I think there's probably a little bit of a difference in the skill level with the driving thing here. I think that probably Hans Brunswick and Lime Mitch are probably a little bit closer matched together than probably what Urgit and Hans are. But that being said, Urgit is doing quite a good job to stay within striking distance of the car ahead of him, and that's the third time that car has done that today. And that time he got the wall for sure, and he's got the wall again. So maybe my comment stands. Maybe the skill level is a little bit different, and that's allowing car 44 to sort of sneak away a bit here. And even Lockie Burke, I think, probably would probably be sneaking away from car 13 as well. So I don't know how this bodes for where they put their drivers in for this one for car 13, but at the moment, this is working out quite well for the sister car 44.
Yeah, it certainly is at the moment. Mishra just looks a little nervous. I'm not sure if that's because he's picked up some damage after that moment, but even in the early part of his stint, he just looked a little nervous. The car was very titchy, very sort of on the nose, a little squirrely, and this lap in particular, because we've seen all of these moments, it's shown that he's dropped away from Hans. And I think the difference here is just consistency. Hans is a smooth operator. He's able to consistently get the right lap time out of that machine, whereas I think Mishra, he's got great pace and patches, but the consistency just isn't there yet.
Look at how nervous.
Into the chase.
Something's not quite right with that car. Then they're going to have to. They've got a little bit of damage from hitting the wall, or they're going to have to tune the bars a little bit to try and get that car to settle.
Another quick note I just want to make here, just while we've got this on screen, is Scott Stancliffe has dropped entirely off the back of this group. He's dropped like a stone, and I think that's just getting to the end of the tyres for that machine. They didn't pit under the safety car, and they last came to the pits on lap 16. So Stancliffe is struggling. He's at a 2:08.9 last lap around. So he's got a bit of work to do. We've still got eyes on Mishra and Foley coming up Mountain Straight, and I think Foley pretty shortly will have the view of the All-Australian Races Mustang in his rear view mirror as opposed to out his front windscreen.
Yeah, correct. So, and a little bit wide there for Mish as well. Foley was wide as well. They were both wide coming through Griffins. And you're right, Stancliffe has started falling back into the clutches now. Nathan Higginson, and you're right, they didn't stop on the last tour. So they stayed out, tried to make position. Did I just see Stancliffe go for a wild moment through the... yes, I did. Just in the back of shot of these two, he was going for a full-on drift moment through the cutting. Now, I have noticed that a few drivers have been using a couple of questionable gear choices at some of these corners as well. I have seen a few drivers using first at the cutting. Normally, it's a second gear corner. And I'm wondering whether or not that sometimes has a bit of a detriment towards some of their driving styles.
Possibly. It's one of those things that in the heat of the moment, if you make a mistake, you're just kind of trying to gather all of it up and take everything you can to get through that corner, and sometimes you might chuck it in a gear that you're not familiar with and lose a bit of time that way. Just quickly, we've had a pit stop for the Matt Cecil Taipan car last lap around, so that's a driver change for them. That's quite a good stint there for those guys, getting to lap 27, so it was a 14-lap stint with that safety car, so good job for them. Sorry, the end of lap 26 rather, so right on cue for them. And yeah, it looks like we've got Lime Mitch in the chat saying that Mitch is just losing a bit of confidence. So he's, I think that's quite clear as we see in the background of this shot. I think Scott Stancliffe just coming into the pits now, so that's we were expecting that to happen pretty soon, and here it is.
Yep, so he's in the lane now. That sends Higginson and Cheese through. Now this is interesting because Cheese has been catching the 00 HME Powerhouse design car over the last couple of laps, and he was quicker again that time around, only by 1/10 of a second because he's been pretty close to being under the rear wing of car 00. But this is a good drive at the moment from Cheese, with NZ Snipes having started the car, and he's into his rhythm now, hunting another one of the fellow Super 2 competitors that Nissan has been honing in on the back of car 00 for the last 2 or 3 laps like a Japanese missile. And might be another one. Wouldn't be up here at the cutting, but I think maybe going to try and size this one up for down at the chase. It seems to be the favoured passing spot today. There hasn't been very many passes anywhere else on the road. There's been a few attempts at turn 2 and a couple attempts across the top of the mountain at various spots, but there hasn't really been any other real spots apart from maybe turn 1 and the chase. They're the favoured spots, I think, so far that everybody's worked out with these hard tyres as Higginson has a moment and slaps the wall at the John Inksman Vista.
And that might be a cause of some damage for Higo. We know he likes...
We just have an issue with Tim Redmond. He may not be in the car. They came into the pits, did a driver change, and his car's now going very slowly up Mountain Straight.
Oh dear. Oh dear. This is not the news we sort of wanted to hear. Although the car is... it looks like it's mobile again. Maybe there might have been some sort of drama there. Let's go on board. Let's just have a little bit of a listen here and see what it sounds like. You guys tell me, because I've got no sound with this one with the way the broadcast setup works. Does it sound normal to you?
It sounds not too bad. He might have just had an issue coming out of the pit lane.
Maybe just a wheel disconnect or something along those lines. It looked like it just looked very lazy. It just kind of made its way across the track and just tagged the wall unceremoniously.
Could have been a force feedback reset or something maybe have happened there as well. That's all possibility. Now, Cheese has probably made a smart call here. I think pulled the trigger and gone for a pit stop. So he got close enough and said, you know what, I haven't got a chance to get past Higginson in the braking zones. I'm going to do it in the pits and maybe we'll get in, get a stop done and get going. Now, this is... Well, these guys have already made a driver change already today, so it's not getting a driver out from the end of the stint. So we're now at the on lap 30 and stop for car 420. So that's going to let RSM Latino go through into what is currently 8th place. So 8 places they've made since the start of the green flag. And these guys have been, well, these two cats have been pretty good all day so far, 30 laps into the stint. Amazing, we've actually only sort of 5 minutes ago, we ticked over the 1 hour distance of this race. We've only had the 2 safety car laps. So that sort of bodes well when you sort of do the math for the rest of the day, that we're sort of tracking towards that slightly under 3 hours to complete the race. So very, very fast pace, very, very early actually.
Yeah, so we've been going at a cracking pace in the early part of the race so far. So good to see that everyone's getting on with it. A few quick notes while we've all been working everything out. That move, Brendan Foley on Ujit Mishra has happened, and Foley's slotted back in behind. So Mishra now in the wheel tracks. Scott Stancliffe saying in the live chat that Tim's got no force feedback. So that's the issue.
That's confirmed my suspicion. That might have been what it was.
So that's a driver change there. We also had a pit stop for Josh Andrew, who stays behind the wheel, and he has come through the pits and now sits in 15th place.
Now, I've got my eyes on Nathan Higginson at the moment here to see if he responds to Cheese coming in for a stop, because these guys are also yet to make a change. Now,
and just by the way, sorry to jump in over the top of you, expecting pit stops from all of the front group. In fact, everyone who stopped under safety car within the next 3 to 4 laps.
Yeah, correct. And that's what I'm sort of looking at now, is when Higginson elects to stop, because it does take a lap or two for some of the tyres to get up to temperature.
In at the last corner, Ujit Mishra is facing the wrong way out of Murray's.
Yeah, there he is, and on the shot there, and loops the car back around and gets going again. So we stay green for that one. And Ryko Filter's race replay will give us the lowdown on what happened there. Is this just maybe a little bit too much inside curb potentially at the final corner? You do need to use the curb a little bit to try and pull yourself around here. And no, just got on the gas. Actually, he was on the gas maybe just a fraction too early. That's all it was. He wasn't even touching the outside curb when he put the gas on. The car was already going before the rear tyre was on the curb. And that's a good job of getting the car facing the right direction. Very, very similar to what we saw from Jordan Boys last year in the 2020 Bathurst 1000, but just not as severe a punishment with regards to how hard that car walloped the wall.
And a bit lucky for Mishra, he's not really had the stint that he would have been after him and Liam Mitch, so hopefully they can settle themselves down a bit, find a way back into this race, and find their way back up the field to support their teammate.
Yeah, I think so, because right now they're flying solo at the moment, car 44. Brenton Foley has not really made any significant inroads in the last lap. He was actually about 6/10 slower, but he is a 10th quicker in the first sector this time, or this lap around, in pursuit of car number 3. So the car in 3rd place overall, I should say. Now, that promoted Higginson back up to 5th, which is 4 spots up from where they started. I'm just having a look as well to see what the sector times are that Cheese is doing at the moment. He's actually in 12th, and he's actually tucked up behind Darren Kemp at the moment. I'm not quite tucked up behind Darren Kemp, but closing in on Darren Kemp. And we'll get a readout on their sector split this time around. And his sector 1 split is a 54 flat relative to Higginson's 54.5 last time around. So Higginson's got to pull the trigger this time around. He's got to pull his finger out. And
there he goes.
There he goes. So So Coxie's been running the numbers obviously for him, and realised that they were being caught. These guys are now 2 laps short of the driver minimum as well. So if they get Coxie in, Higginson's going to have to get back in at some point. Yeah,
certainly. And Peter Throwers in the lane as well. So that moves Ujit Mishra back up into 5th place. The interesting thing for me, and something that we might have lost a little bit in this, is the pace of Peter Savage. He's been consistently setting low 206s in that number 10, the bogged down motorsport machine. So he's finding his way back up the field. RSM Latino and Lockie Lock also in the pits as well. So these are all the guys who pit under the safety car coming into the lane 12 laps on to top up their fuel, I believe.
Yeah, RSM Latino's in the lane as well too, so there's about 3 or 4 cars in the lane at the moment. There's the Lockie Lock Mustangs just come in as well for 237 for LLM. Now, Cheese is coming around the final corner now, and he's got eyes on Higginson. Higginson has stayed in the car, so obviously he's in the zone here. Now, I think this will be a little bit close on exit, but I think maybe... Well, they're going to be behind. Yeah. Cheese is through, so that's a good, smart call by car 420. They've made that undercut work, and they've got tyres that are 2 laps older, but they're up to temperature and they're up to pressure, so they should be able to drive away for the next couple of laps from Higginson until that car gets its tyres up to speed.
Cam Rutledge also in the pits.
Moment for Darren Kemp. He's gone wide and he's going to see position to Cheese. That's another spot for car 420. So mistake from Darren Kemp at Griffin's Bend. Locked it up, went wide, stayed out of the fence, thankfully. But he has now given up another spot to car 420. So that's very, very good couple of laps for this car.
And we were saying earlier on that this is exactly what you expect from Cheese and NZ Snipes. They're very good operators, very consistent, and they've just worked their way up the field with good strategy and good smart driving. And here we are at the 32 lap mark with them sitting in 7th place. Just a quick shout out though to Darren Kemp and Steve Burko. They're up 6 spots regardless, so they're doing very well themselves.
Yeah, they are, having started down the order.
Gentlemen, the leader's in.
Leader is in. So eyes on the pit stops for...
Good.
Crew at the moment, there they are. Yep,
and Brendan Ross.
And Brendan Ross as well. Yeah, so, and then that means that's released Hans Brunswick into the lead. So car 44 now turns some more laps in the lead. It'll be their 2nd turn at the head of the field today.
And Brendan Foley's in as well.
Yep, and now we're seeing, and there's Stenberger stayed in the car. Now, they had not made their minimum laps either. Like, they've actually ticked over lap 32 coming into the pits. So they were 1 lap short of actually getting
into the car. This is going to be very close between them and Peter Savage. Savage is just coming down the main straight now.
I think out ahead. So there's Stenberg, and there's Savage behind. So he's turned a few laps, and now, importantly, Savage is over the minimum, and Stenberg will be as well. But, of course, they're off sequence relative to everybody else, car 10.
And Peter Savage has maintained that position ahead of Team Has-Been, ahead of the 2 AAR, the AAR number 13 car, and ahead of Brenton Foley's PBF Race Engineering car. So that's great work from Savage. We did kind of lose him there because he took that pit stop just after the safety car, but he's done great work and slotted back in exactly where he was when he took his pit stop.
He will obviously stop fairly soon though, and we would expect with everything he's had going on, he'll probably jump out of the car.
Yes, certainly.
I think so too. Yeah. He's been in that car for an hour and 12 minutes now.
Brad Severs has looped it on the exit of the chase and tried to rejoin it almost ahead of Josh Andrews. But luckily for Josh, there was just enough room for him to sneak through as Severs comes straight into the pits. So lucky moment for those guys.
Now these guys are they're a couple of laps down, they're 1 lap down, sorry. So they've actually got to either keep Brad Severs in the car for another lap, or they'll have to get him back in at some point. Now, for Brad Severs, I think he'll probably be keen to get out of the car because he's the one with the biggest time differential at the moment, as the race leader is in with Hans Brunswick coming into the lane in car 44. And those guys have cleared a minimum as well. So I think maybe Lockie Burke might jump into this one as Severs is in. And Rutledge goes through and takes that one back. And then here comes the current race leader, car 44. And that'll cycle the lead back around to Kurt Stenberg.
Importantly for those guys, that is Hans Brunswick's minimum laps done. So if they want to, they can put Lockie Burke in that machine and run him to the end of the race. I'm not sure if that will be the correct strategy, but Hans, for the moment, has completed his minimum drive time as Stenberg comes down the main straight.
Yep, easy pass. Car 444 is still stationary at the moment. Savage will also go through into a current net second place. And the AAR Mustang leaves the lane in the hands of Lockie Burke. So there is a driver change there. So that's the first driver to clear minimums and actually jump out of the car. But I still think maybe there might be another driver change left in that car. But that's a good stint by Hans, an hour and 14 minutes there or thereabouts. And he's taken the car on the road from where it started up. They're up a full position from where they began the race. So that's a very, very good stint. And we also missed in that as well that Lewis Wedding took over from Brendan Ross at that last stop as well.
So car 44 is just doing what they need to do at the moment. Just keep it in that third place position.
Yeah, well, they're fourth at the moment. Oh, there's a bit of a brake pedal as they didn't pump the pedal in the pits there, so the brake pressure wouldn't be quite where it needed to be. And Burke has to take it a bit conservatively through Griffin's Bend. But we're not going to get the full picture of this playing out, and probably till around about lap 60 or 70, I think, gentlemen, because Pete Savage is off sequence to everybody else. Stenberg, Wedding and Burke are all pitted within about a lap of each other. And on top of that, Savage is off sequence because of coming in after the safety car. So we're really not going to get a real indication of how this all shakes out until the last pit stops are really taken.
So we should expect Savage in within the next 3 laps, however. So he'll be in fairly shortly. We'll just want to point out where people have come out after their pit stops. Tim Redmond is ahead of Ujit Mishra. Mishra's dropped down to 8th place after his pit stop. So quite a ways away from the likes of Lockie Burke and who he was battling with beforehand. But Phil Boak, for some reason, has jumped out in 10th place. So remember, Boak was ahead of Mishra and on the tail of Hans Brunswick and Lachlan Burke prior to the pit stops. But during the pit stop, he's lost something in the realm of 12 seconds, 13 seconds to the guys he was racing. And so he's quite a ways down the order.
Yeah, and you've got to remember too that the driver change does take a couple of seconds extra during the stop as well, because when the car hits the deck, the car goes back to neutral. Driver's got to select first gear and then drive it away, and there's usually about a 1 to 1.5 second delay there. And the in-lap for Foley wasn't that great either. It was a 3:03.9 on the in-lap, including coming down the road. So on top of that, everyone else had done like a mid 3:02 as their in-lap, as their out-lap. So they have lost a bit of time, not only from doing the driver change, but also having lost time from a poor out-lap.
Someone else who's done a driver change down the back of the grid, we've seen Steve Warwick in the car for the first time. He's engaged in a battle with Lockie Locke, who's stayed in the machine. They're battling over 11th and 12th. And the Warwick Automotive Mustang and the Black Shores Racing RSM Commodore. Steve Burko is back behind the wheel in the C7 Motorsports machine. He's currently trying to put a lap on John McDonald, it looks like, as they come down the chase.
Actually, we've just found out what happened to Brenton Foley here in the live chat. He's just mentioned he tagged the wall at turn 1. Wow. So that means he must have been off the circuit. So he tagged the wall at turn 1 and had to do a whole lap with a blown front right. So that means he would have been in the fence just on screen here, off in the Ryco Filters fence at turn 1. So that's a real interesting one. You see, he ruined all the work that he did in the stint when he handed it over. So their hand was forced, basically.
Yeah, so that's why they lost such a significant amount of time. Thanks for the update there, Brendan Foley. So interesting little phase of the race we've got here. In the middle pages, Cheese almost backs it into the wall off the S's. Oh boy, I was just watching that now, and he almost threw it away like we saw in qualifying 4, 5, 6 cars do last night. Very lucky not to end up in that tyre barrier as we go to have a look at the Ryko Filters replay.
We certainly will have a look at that one. It's been a hot spot throughout the weekend so far. Everybody pushing the limits at this part of the circuit. Looked fairly stable through McPhillamy Park, down the S's, and yeah, again the tail end got away, then it went the other way, and that's a good save. That's a very good save.
That's a mega save. That most drivers, myself included, would have put that in the wall after that, but that was great car control. As you see, Peter Savage now coming to the pit lane as well.
Yep, so that'll now sort of reset this field a little bit, and that'll put this car on screen, Cheese and NZ Snipes, up to 4th place of all places, so that'll be good. It'll drag Higginson and Redmond along for the ride as well. Now, they've closed in here on Cheese over the last little bit, so everybody here is going to gain an extra spot. There they go. There's the car number 10 in the lane. Cheese up 4th, Higginson to 5th, Redmond to 6th, Savage now down to 7th.
Oh, and side by side between Higo and Redmond. Side by side between Higo and Redmond actually makes the move around the outside of Hell Corner. So well done to Redmond. So that car, Tim Redmond and Scott Stancliffe, that came in at the end of lap 28. Higgins tries to go back around the outside into Griffin's Bend.
He's trying to do the old Taz Douglas and Cam Waters thing that happened at that same turn in 2014 and ended in tears, but he didn't try and follow through with that one there. He thought discretion was a better part of valor and he got out of it.
So Higginson came in at the end of lap 31, so he's still relatively fresh for that stint. Cheese, he came in the end of lap 29, so they're separated in strategy just a little bit. I remember Cheese actually did the undercut on Higo. That was how that move was made. And now Redmond is looking to atone for that little force feedback error as he runs a little wide through McPhillamy Park, but gathers it all up. So Redmond was ahead of this group when they came into the pits with Scott Stancliffe, but of course that little problem with the force feedback saw that little contact with the wall on the exit of the pit lane, and now Redmond is putting Cheese to the sword as they come through the elbow, and it looks like he's got the run to make the move, and he's already done it, not even beyond the kink out of the elbow. So well done, Tim Redmond. He's got a fire in his belly at the moment.
I think Cheese probably let that one have him there, Kiwi. I think he probably realised he was going to get hung out to dry, and they're not racing these guys for position overall. They're looking to finish. So he would have just sidestepped the argument and said, you know what, I'll try and be dragged along for a little bit here. Maybe I can stay ahead of Higo, but they're not racing these guys today.
Yeah, and there's no point, 36 laps in, not even halfway, wasting time in a battle that you're not involved in.
Yeah,
save that for lap 75.
That's right, and that was basically what we saw last night with regards to the incident at the final corner with Brad Severs and young Braxton Stancliffe too.
Exactly. I'm curious, so Tim Redmond's force feedback issue, would that be an ongoing thing, or would they have a switch they can fix it when he comes out of the pit lane?
Yeah, there is a sequence in the game you can actually push to get the force feedback reset. Usually it's the spacebar button on the keyboard. So I'd imagine he's come out of the pits, he's had no force feedback. Either he's tried to reset it in some way or another and then get going again. And maybe he's had to have 2 or 3 bites of the cherry to actually get it to properly reset. I don't know if he's driving without force feedback or if he's got it back. Maybe Scott Stancliffe can confirm that in the chat for us. As with Pete Savage having done his minimum stints as well, Will Devonish is in the car. That's one thing we just missed as well, gentlemen. So the protagonist, who was caught up in a lot of the carnage late in both those Gold Coast 400 races 2 weeks ago, is in the car, and car 10 is on the move. The next man up the road for him is the fabulous Phil Boak.
I want to come back to that point because we've got an update from Peter Savage in the live chat, but I do want to draw attention to Kurt Stenberg, purple first sector, purple middle sector. As he comes through Murray's Corner, it's going to be a new fastest lap of the race. Could we see the lap record go? And we do, a 2:04.680. So Kurt Stenberg, the brand new owner of the fastest lap record around the ASR Bathurst 500 track. So he's on a charge at the moment. He has a 22-second gap over Lewis Wedding. So he's certainly doing the hard yards. He's been in that car since the very beginning of the race as well. So doing very well for Parramatta Speedway Racing is Kurt Stenberg. Now,
before you do that, I do want to bring up another point. And you know what what Luke Rosella had to say about that?
What?
That. He's was behind, his hands behind the head, leaning back in the easy chair and looking at it going, it's just a fast lap.
Yeah, nah, I can go faster.
That's it.
Brilliant. So that'll be an interesting intra-team competition once Luke Roselli gets behind the wheel and we see what he can do. At the minute, also the update on Peter Savage. He's saying that they had to flip the strategy in the Bogdown Motorsports number 10 machine to help them have a decent frame rate, because the game was only okay when Savage was on his own. So a few problems there in the Bogdown Motorsports machine. So hopefully Will finds his way up the front late on. John McDonald also saying that he missed the start and didn't put a setup because he was in the bathroom. And then then when he got the lucky dog, he got given the green next lap icon, as he only had 5.5 liters of fuel in the machine. So he had to unlap himself and then gain a pit stop to try and get fuel in that car. So a bit of a mess for McDonald so far. That car currently sits last place with Ben Hall behind the wheel.
That was a case of Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events.
Absolutely.
So I can probably offer some insight to Pete Savage as to maybe to tone that down a little bit. There's a couple of settings in the game that can happen there. So the number of visible cars is probably something to turn down. Because there's only 18 cars. I think we've actually got it set to 15. I mean, that's a little bit high, even though with the number of cars that are running solo at the moment. So you turn that down, you can maybe help your case a little bit there. There's a few other things to turn off as well. Don't forget the replays of the movies and stuff as well. So there's always a few things there. And I think there's a little bit of a jokes have already started with regards to Luke Rosella in the live chat. His former teammate from last year that says Luke's being carried again.
Classic.
And at the moment, I wouldn't disagree with that statement.
Or, I mean, he hasn't got in the car yet. He does need to get in the car within the next 8 laps if he wants to be classified. So that's something that they have to work out.
Yeah, that's the important thing. I mean, no matter what happens from here, in the next 8 laps, they have actually got to get him into this car on screen at the moment. And they lead by a very, very healthy margin at the moment.
I just want to bring us back to the battle for 5th and 6th. Nathan Higginson versus Cheese, because it is on for young and old at the moment. Cheese has lost a little bit of time and a little bit of pace with the undercut, giving him that position, but now putting him under fire. And Higginson is all over the rear end of that Nissan Altima as they fly up Mountain Straight once again.
Yeah, here they go now. He's actually got his tyres and temperatures now up to pressure at the moment. As Nathan Higginson, as we hone in on the cockpit view, but also on the battle camera as well on the bottom right-hand side there, up to the cutting. And this is the one trick. Ruben Higginson's given the wall a rub on the outside. Again, it's another car that's made that mistake at that part of the circuit tonight, or today rather, I should say. Today. I'm thinking too far ahead of myself. And that's cost him some track, has cost him some position. Look at that, the gap has opened up as well now.
Only takes one mistake, doesn't it, lads?
Yeah, as we talk about all the time around this place, it's just so unforgiving. There's concrete everywhere. And
now, Ujit Mishra's starting to get involved in this little battle as well. He's starting to close these guys down, a little bit more confidence. He was quickest out of the 3 of them through the first sector on this lap as well. So he's coming like a freight train at the moment. And he's not got a lot more track to go until he'd be right under the rear wing of car 00.
And just comparing the lap times between Cheese and Ujit Mishra, Mishra mostly in the low to mid 7s, whereas Cheese is in the high 8s to low 9s. So Mishra is really putting the hammer down here, and he's going to be on the tail of these guys in no time at all. But Higginson might be up the inside at the chase here. They go side by side through the King. Higginson's deep on the brakes and swings around the front and takes that position back. So Nathan Higginson is doing quite a good job. Remember, he's been in that car since the very beginning of the race, and he's flying up the order. He's up into 5th place as we've got a pit stop for Tim Redmond.
Now that's just slightly before half distance as well. I think that'll be a pit stop to try and resolve the force feedback issues that's been plaguing
That's actually
that car.
on schedule. Sorry, Nether. That's
Okay.
on schedule.
All right, so there you go. So they're a little bit lucky with that regard then as well, that they've been able to get in and get this done. The question is whether or not they'll take a time to try and resolve the feedback issue, or whether they'll actually just let it go and press on as is. Devonish has made a spot. Who did he get past? He got past Freakish, and he's also now gone past Tim Redmond, who's in the pits as well. Again, remember, this car is off sequence to everybody else. and they would have been crunching the numbers to try and work themselves back through the field. Has he been closing in on Phil Boakson? Next question. The answer to that is, well, not in the last lap. He was a tenth slower than Boak. What's happening ahead of him? There's a little bit of coming together with, well, that was Brad Severs and John McDonald, is it? Or is it? No, Ben Hall's in that car.
That's a battle for position, by the way.
That is a battle for position as well. The last two cars on the lead, on the 2 laps down, and they're about to get rounded up here by Will Devonish, and he's going to catch them at the worst possible time.
I've been keeping an eye on those two. They've actually been in the battle.
Wanted the inside, and Hall wanted to give him the opposite way around, and that sort of didn't quite work out the way that it wanted to, but they got away with that one and found some space. Now the next opportunity is, can you get the business done here? Yes, good smart driving by Rhodey.
Yeah. I was going to say that these two have been in a battle for a lot of the race, and having the leader come up against them at the worst possible moment. But they've survived all that somehow.
Yeah. Somehow.
And now they've come back together again, so it's as you were, gentlemen. You can now continue your fight.
An update from Stancliffe in the live chat. Tim Redmond is driving still with no force feedback. So he's doing it all basically blind, effectively. So he's doing well to keep that car on the road. He currently sits in 12th after he just made a pit stop. His next target is the battle for a 10th between Lachlan Locke and Steve Warwick, which has continued to rage on. They've been in a very respectful battle that's lasted the entire stint. Not been separated by more than a second the whole time, but I haven't seen them come to grips with each other at all.
No, I'm actually very, very impressed with how a lot of these drivers have conducted themselves over the opening half of the race.
Stenberg's made the wall coming down the S's. He's just managed to keep going, but that was a huge moment coming down the S's.
All right, big wake-up call. The race leader gets their first wake-up call of the day. Time for a look at the Ryco Filters race replay for this one. So this is the first real sign of trouble that we've seen from Stenberg since, I think it was after the last pit stop when he ran a little bit wide at Griffin's at the safety car race, actually it was. And what happened here? Oh, it was all crossed up and, it was just a glancing blow. It wasn't, for a moment there, it looked like it was going to be a Kostecki incident again, but he's managed to just keep that one out of the wall and just keep the damage to the bare minimum.
Heart and mouth stuff there for those guys. That was crazy. But lucky that they've managed to keep on going. It looked like he got so wide over Skyline that the car just wouldn't come back to him as he came through the S's. So lucky for Stenberg and Rosella, and they managed to keep on going.
Coming back to that battle that you were talking about just before, sorry to cut you off there, Kiwi, but coming back to Lockie Locke and Steve Warwick, who have actually now gained a spot over Redmond via that stop that Redmond just had as well. And he said these guys have been very, very good for the better part of the first 40 laps of the race, which we have actually now officially ticked over half distance here, ladies and gentlemen. So that's important to note. And just the 2 safety car laps. I was about to say, I was very impressed with all the drivers that are in this race so far. Everybody's still going after half distance, and there haven't been too many incidents to speak of, so I'm really impressed with the driving standards that everybody's put on display today. It's a big, big tick for all 36 drivers in the group so far. Well, I say 36 because most of them have already done a driver change. I know there's only one that hasn't. Oh, sorry, 2 that haven't, sorry.
One of them being the leader.
Yeah, one of them being the leader, the other one being, I had it on the list before, Nathan Higginson is the other one who hasn't made a driver swap just yet.
Yeah. And we're expecting that Higginson car in this lap, I believe.
Have to be soon.
Yeah, Cheese came in last lap around, so that was a 21 lap stint for Cheese. And so he's handed back to NZ Snipes, who has 11 laps under his belt, and he now sits in 13th place. I've got eyes just on the battle for 14th between Josh, Andrew, and Taipan. They're separated by less than half a second, but they've also got the leader, one of the leaders, Lachlan Burke, just coming up to lap them as they come down through the S's.
Yeah, now so Termo was on the back of this Penrite Ryco Racing Commodore as well until Burke arrived on the scene, and that's sort of broken that little battle up now. So
But Turner was a lap down on Andrew as well.
Yeah, correct. So he's gone a lap down now too. But he was still sticking with Andrew, trying to just sort of hang on to him and just sort of be towed around the circuit, as you can see here. Draft sort of there or thereabouts for Burke. He's closing in, but he's not really quite there. And, oh, blown engine!
Oh.
Blown engine for car 187. It's over. Too many gears, over and out. Too many gears at the chase, and the first domino falls. The first engine failure that we've seen today. I don't think that Andrew's going to be able to make this to the pit lane, but we're going to bring that one up on the Ryco filters replay for the Penrite Ryco Commodore. And let's have a listen here, gentlemen. It's I think he's probably gone way too many gears down in a very short space of time. And there she goes.
Damn. And the car is gone, unfortunately. That's the first retirement for the race, unless they can get that into the pits and get a driver change.
They're in the pit lane.
Yeah, the problem is actually getting down pit lane to their box. That'll be the next question they have to see if they can figure this out. Now, I've not seen this happen. Clutches in, so they're still rolling. Flames belching from the rear of that car. They should be able. I think they'll be able to make it to their box, but it's.
They're going to have about 4 bays short, I think.
Yeah, if they get up too short, they won't be able to get this done. So they're going to need some help from somewhere, and it's not going to happen. So that's going to be over and out for car 187. Heartbreak for those guys in the Penrite Ryco Racing Garage.
Rotten luck. Just one very minor mistake, and that's your race start. And they've been having a good run. So.
Behind them as well in the pit lane, just noticed as well that Freakish and Steve Warwick have come into the lane as well. Their bays are line astern as well. They're the last 2 bays in pit lane. I'm just waiting to see. Oh no, they've gone back to the garage now, so they're officially over and out. I was wondering whether or not they might get a little bit of Kiwi assistance from the team Tipua car 56, but that hasn't happened.
Very unlucky for Andrew and Braxton Stancliffe. That's a pretty bitter way to end their day. Unfortunate for the Penrite Ryco Racing Machine. Someone had to be the first one to suffer an issue, and unfortunately it was them. So they are a first retirement just after half race distance. And weren't you just saying moments ago that you were impressed that everyone made it to half race distance, Steve?
Yeah, I was very impressed that everybody made it to half race distance. I was more concerned about like the number of incidents and collisions and stuff like that. So everybody had been on their best behaviour until that point, but I can't predict a money shift. Sorry, gentlemen.
What I can predict is we're going to have a mega battle for 4th, 5th and 6th at the moment. Because
we're watching that We're watching that right now at the moment with Nathan Higginson heading Ujit Mishra and Phil Boak. And Higginson's in. So this is the next part in the puzzle is Daniel Cox needs to get into this car. So Higginson has done 43 out of the 81 laps and needs to hand this car over because otherwise they were going to probably end up a little bit short. So I'd say Daniel Cox is on standby for this one. I haven't actually got him in the live, in the Teams meeting to actually see if he's ready to go.
Happening,
all I can see is Higginson ready.
They're going side by side up Mountain Straight, Mishra and Boak. It's Boak on the inside as they head into Griffin's Bend, and he muscles his way through. So that's now Boak up into 4th place, Mishra down to 5th.
We'll see Lockie Locks come into the pit lane as well. Imagine that'll probably be a driver change as well.
Yes, Lockie Lock was one of the other drivers who has been in since the very beginning of the race. So he's in the same boat as Higginson.
Okay, Daniel Cox is in the 00 machine. He's away. There comes Lockie Lock into the back. No, actually, Lockie Lock and Justin Cecil have actually made a change at some point during the race as well. So
and the leader is in.
And then Kurt Stenberg is the leader as well now. So this will be officially a driver swap to Luke Rosella. I can see him ready to go. Just waiting for everything to take place. We've talked him through all the bits to do. Make sure driver is selected, fuel's in the car, tyres ready to go. And that will give the lead to Lewis Wedding or Temperate. No, it won't because Wedding's coming in. Now, I don't know if this is handing over to Brendan Ross or not. Wedding did start the car and has done another, about another 12 lap stint for these guys. So he's a bit short on the laps as well. I think
he's done 21 so far.
Yeah, I think he'll stay in here, do another 12-lap stint, and then he'll be cleared for the minimums, and then they'll get Ross back into the car to go to the end. That's what my prediction here is.
Is this a long stop for Stenberg and Rosella? Is it working?
Has he?
It's just kicked over now.
Yeah, there's probably some damage. I would imagine there's a bit of damage repair in that from maybe rubbing the wall on a few occasions here or there that probably got done as well.
Philboke's in as well.
Yep, so Rosella out. He was already trying to put some tyres temperature in the pit lane as well, so he was trying to work that front end of the car as much as possible. That cycles car 44 into the lead of this race for the moment, and I expect that they'll probably be in the next lap or two.
Wedding stays in the car.
Okay, so Wedding is in, and so that's I confirmed, or as I suspected, that he'll go to the end of his next stint, and then they'll be over done with.
Just a quick sidebar, while this is all happening at the front of the field, the number 00 and the number 420 car are back together on track, and now it's NZ Snipes who goes through on Daniel Cox. So they've come out literally line astern and are resuming that battle once again.
Yep, and the Super 2 points leader now demoted to 10th place. The man who stepped up from Super 2 last year to this year in NZ Snipes goes through to 9th place. And there's nobody in the lane, so they won't get another position out of this one. But no, it's been a good battle between these two cars all race long. It's ebbed and flowed. The positions have changed quite well. And Brent Foley back into car 074 comes out just ahead of this battle as well. So we're going to have a little three-car battle again. These guys both up to... Snipes will have temperature and pressure in the tyres. Cox has only been out there for a lap. And they're probably a little bit too far to really make any meaningful difference to Brent Foley for the moment. So I think Foley probably will be safe. And Lachlan Burke is in the lane for car 44.
Now, for me, it'll be interesting to see where Ujit Mishra drops out when he takes his next pit stop, because he just got passed by Brenton Foley on that last lap, if I recall correctly, before the pits. Oh, sorry, no, Foley was in that battle with those behind him, Cheese, or NZ Snipes, and, that's all gone, Daniel Cox now. So it'll be interesting to see where Mishra drops out in relation to that battle as he comes into the pit lane as well. So we've got Lachlan Burke and Ujit Mishra, both AAR cars in, and that will put, I think, Will Devonish into second place.
Yeah, Will. And they were on sequence as well anyway. They came in the last pit stop together and pitted together. Yeah. So it makes sense that they're both in the lane together as well anyway. I've just been keeping an eye on those because I did realise that they did stop like pretty much line of stern together. It'll actually put this man Lewis Wedding up a couple of spots as well. He's going up to third now as well. So this is where the team has been. Number 5 Mustang has been for a good portion of the day so far, inside the top 5 quite comfortably. And we're going to pay a little bit of. We might get Lewis Wedding on the screen here. There we go. As changing through the years up Mount Straight. Looks a bit like Lee Holdsworth here, I think he was talking to himself. He said he shaved his head twice during the lockdown, and he said, I'm like Lee Holdsworth, just a bit chubbier.
Brilliant.
I can see there's a few, I know he's there, the washing in the room there with him. There's a dog toy and a couple of other things on the ground. Actually, two chew toys for the dog on the ground, but the dog, I think, is been banished from the room for today.
Yeah, you don't need a co-driver.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't need a co-pilot. Actually, no. So it doesn't need a backseat driver. I think more importantly, it sits there all day going, chopping away at the toy.
So Flood, I think the battle between Ujit Mishra and NZ Snipes is resolved in a side-by-side battle coming up Mountain Straight.
Yes, that was just what I was alluding to beforehand, where Mishra was going to pop out. It's actually Lime Mitch behind the wheel, and it's side-by-side up Mountain Straight between himself and NZ Snipes. NZ Snipes just got boxed out a little bit, and I think Mitch will hold that position through the cutting. So it was very, very tight, a very, very close run thing. But I think Lime Mitch has the quality, once he gets the tyres up to temperature, to maybe pull away from NZ Snipes and try and attach himself onto the rear of Brenton Foley. But it is a little ways to go for him. Tim Redmond's also now just in 5th place. He's managed to move his way up the order as the pit sequence has pulled through. And that was what I was getting very excited, very animated about in the background.
There you go. And on top of that as well, I mean, this is a very famous shot as well. So we've got Lime Mitch on the screen here as well. Actually, the camera's bouncing away there as the force feedback sort of goes. This is a very famous shot. I think Flood remembers this one from last year, as Mitch is very narrow for the elbow there as well. Got it all crossed up. This is the famous shot last year. Remember, we were interviewing him during the red flag, and his father came in and asked if he wanted some lunch.
Oh,
So this was the
Yes.
the angle I think we were looking at with this. So Mitch has got the eyes on here, and I think probably going a bit narrow at the elbow there is probably a symptom of them having just come out of the pits and not having, again, tyre temperature and tyre pressure. It's the big topic today, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's been very difficult for the guys who did a lot of practice on the soft tyres in the lead up to this event. When the news came through that we were switching to a hard-only event, it meant that basically all of that had to get thrown out the window. So it's been the talk of the weekend, really, getting the tyres up to temperature, getting them in the right cycle. And we saw a lot of people have difficulty with that yesterday. It looks like it's a little bit more of an easier equation today, though. So Mitch, once he's got those tyres up to temperature, has already pulled out a 1.5-second gap over Enfield Snipes, and he'll be making inroads onto the rear of Brenton Foley momentarily.
Certainly will. So what's the time that time around? So it was an outlap for Mitch, so we really didn't get a true indication of that. But middle sector was a little bit poor last time around, and the last sector was only a 10th difference. So there's Foley flashing through the front of shot, and here comes car 13. So we'll get Foley a little bit sideways, or Foley-esque on the exit of the thing. Mitch not too far away from doing the same thing as well. He went closer to the fence than Foley did, and he gave the wall a rub, and a few drivers continuing to do that. Let's look at the sector splits as they go. And we get the sector split for Lion Mitch. The 53.5 to Foley's 53.1. So 0.4 of a second gain for Foley that time around. So for the moment, it's as you were with Foley being out front and just sort of edging a little bit further away sector by sector.
And we saw him roostering through McPhillamy as well. So it's been a very regular start for Lime Mitch. I think he just comes through the elbow now.
Yeah, Mitch is through the elbow as well, and here's Brenton Foley on the straight. So these guys are 6th overall, and this is where they started the race as well. Through the chase, lap 47 for these guys. Oh, a little bit of an awkward moment there as well. Had a couple of bites at the steering wheel as the car didn't want to turn in for turn 21. Down to the final corner as well. There's Lion Mitch behind, and Foley Rooster Tails at the final corner as well. So it's time for him. Not getting some of the times coming up at the moment. We have to refer to live races for this one. asrleague.liveraces.com is where the times are coming from. It was a 2:06.3 for Foley that time around. It was a 2:06.9 for Mitch. So Foley's holding the aces here.
And that was made even a bit smaller by the fact that Lion Mitch was 0.4 of a second faster in the last sector as well. So
it looks like to me that the Lime Mitch Ujit Mishra car has just been a bit nervous. We made mention of that while Ujit was driving it, but it just doesn't look like it's as settled particularly early on in the stint. It seems that the car sort of comes back into a groove later on, but in this early phase, it looks like it's very, very difficult to drive well and drive effectively. So they're struggling a little bit.
Mistake!
Big tank slapper over the hump on the exit of the cutting.
It was more than a tank slapper. I think he got the inside wall on the driver's right there, and that's what sent the car into a little bit of a moment. So again, nervous as they pushing a little bit too hard, maybe asking a little bit too much of the tyres when they're not in the operating window just yet. But that's a couple of moments, and we saw this again very early in the race, opening couple of laps where the car was very nervous and sort of didn't want to cooperate. And this is the hard thing about an endurance race. The setup between the drivers changes apart from steering lock and the brake pressure, which is tied to the driver's own behaviour and how they want to drive the car. But everything else is the same, so you've got to tune it out. The only way you can tune it out is by using the bars and the front and rear anti-roll bars. That's the only way you can really change it. And if you want to change the tyre pressures on an incoming for another stint, then you can do that as well.
And that kind of adds the complication for John McDonald and Ben Hall. We made mention that they had issues at the start of the race. They, because of McDonald's poorly timed bathroom break, it meant that they didn't actually load a setup at all. So they're running default. So everything that they would have had planned has been thrown out the entire window. Quick update, Devonish is in the pits. So he's taking a pit stop now on the start of lap 47.
Probably
so
not a bad idea, actually, Flood, considering what's happening on screen at the moment here, where Luke Rosell, the race leader, is actually being held up a bit across the top of the mountain by Darren Kemp. So lets him now go at Forest Elbow, but he has been held up a bit here, and probably I think it's a smart situation for Devonish to just get a stop out of the way and get it over and done with. They were off sequence anyway, so it really didn't matter too much.
Well, that's actually on schedule for them, so that's a 12-lap stint for Devonish as well. So
Correct.
It looks like 12 laps is exactly what the number that people are hitting. So quite a fair bit away from 15 that we were expecting at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, well, I think the 15 one, again, I think was probably safety car assisted, and with the number of drivers that were probably trying more safety car than anything else. Flood.
Devonish just made contact with the wall at the cutting. He did a Jamie Whincup, and it was lucky that he didn't hit the wall harder there. So on cold tyres, cold rain just coming out of the pits, and almost threw the race away.
There we go. Let's have a look at this one on the Ryco Filters replay. It's got a bit of work today, the Ryco Filters replay, coming through Penrite Griffin's Bend. And he was actually up behind NZ Snipes here, was ahead of him in terms of position. Oh, yeah, he did a Jamie Whincup all right. Oh, he got, just gave the wall just a very, very light rub there and just got away with it. Again, cold tyres.
Oh, we have another engine blown. I think it might be a Phil Boak. Just coming out of the yellow.
Yeah.
It looks like, and I think you might be right. Yeah, there is Phil Boak's car coming to a stop, a crawl on the Conrod Straight, and they're going to have to find a way to pull that one over somewhere. Where's that one let go? That's probably let go. It has to have let go on the approach to the elbow, I would have thought. Actually, earlier than that. I think I've got it here. So out of the dip up, everything was going according to plan, and yeah, he's done what Tim Slade did earlier in the year. I think he's come back one too many gears and not only sent the car into a bit of a tailspin coming down to the elbow, but it's blown the engine as well. Those remember Tim Slade incident where he absolutely destroyed the BRT Mustang on the run at the first race of the Bathurst Mount Panorama 500 earlier in the year. And yeah, that's over and done with. Actually, that wasn't with Phil Boak, that was Brenton Foley.
And these guys were 4th in the Endurance Cup Championship, so that's going to be a big goose egg for them, and they're going to drop quite a ways down the order for the Endurance Cup, and that's it. Their day is done. So 2 down as we are on lap 48. That is quite a ways into the race now, lap 48. What's that in terms of kilometerage?
When we did the 300 a number of years ago, I think it was actually 2 years ago, I think 49 was the distance to get to 300 kilometres. So I think we're probably we've got 200 remaining based on what I'm looking at here. And even when they were doing 250k races at Mount Panorama, it was 41 laps.
Yeah, we've just sticked over 304.388.
Yeah, so pretty much we're well over the half distance anyway, but we've got just under 200 kilometres to run.
Unfortunate for them. They were looking pretty solid in the top 5 for most of the race, and that's an F in the chat as LJ Fluth, who I think is
it's Lockie Lock. Yeah, so yeah, big F for those guys.
You know where my mind first went to when I saw that?
What?
Paul Radisich 2000.
Oh yes, the rat.
Oh, all you need now is a horse for him to go pat.
Oh dear. Yeah, well, they pulled up right next to the gate, so I'm sure there's plenty of horses in some of these houses that are there as well. Now, I know actually speaking of accommodation at Mount Panorama, we may as well go off topic a little bit here because there's a little bit of a lull in the race anyway. I know ridges, are booked out up to 5 or so years in advance. That's just on screen here, just as Daniel Cox is coming into the chase. It's where the camera angle is actually positioned on the balcony of the Ridges Hotel. Those guys are actually booked out about 5 years in advance alone for all of the events at Mount Panorama. And I'd imagine a lot of the houses around the area as well. I mean, I know that a lot of the locals, sometimes they'll stay for the event, sometimes they'll go. Sometimes some of them probably put them out as Airbnbs. And I'd imagine I've seen a lot of real estate advertising as well, that the prices for having a house around here to sell are phenomenally expensive.
Well, wasn't there one on the market recently that went for double-digit millions?
Yeah, it was actually. I think it was actually one of the ones on Mountain Straight, I believe, that went for quite a tidy sum. And the thing as well, there's a couple of businesses that are in the area as well. There's actually a bed and breakfast and a wedding reception venue, I think, that's on the exit of the Elbow as well, off to the right. That's probably worth a small fortune too.
Yeah, it would be a dream though, don't you reckon? To do that, I think there is one place where I've been to on Conrod Strait. I know Kiwi is very jealous of this. There's a guy who owns the last house on Conrod Strait before the chase, and he's got a little camper trailer that's basically bolted into the ground there that he opens up as like a full camping bar and live timing experience. And the guys, the Shakedown community, shout out to those in the Shakedown community. They invited myself and one or two of the people that I was with on that day as well, as the subreddit r/WEC, big friends of the Shakedown community. So they invited us in, and we got to watch some of the Bathurst 12-hour qualifying session from basically 10 meters away from the wall at the chase at 300 kilometers per hour. So that was quite a cool experience. And yeah, the dude just invites people around. There's a camper trailer just behind that as well. So you can camp, if you're lucky enough to be invited, you can camp there on that site. And it's quite an experience, I'll say that much. Just a quick note as well, we've had Tim Redmond come in for a pit stop and swap over to Scott Stancliffe. So now that's Stancliffe and the Kiwi Sim Sports car down in 9th place.
Yeah, what does that do for their driver minimums as well there, Flood? Because I think Redmond has probably done the majority of the laps so far.
Let me just do some quick math. So Redmond was in from lap 1 to 16, and then Scott was in from then to 28. So Redmond got back in at lap 28 and went to 51. And if I do some quick maths, that'll be an additional 23 laps. So I think that means that Stancliffe is... Redmond's finished up, if I have done my math correctly.
With 33 laps being the minimum, then I think we're pretty much spot on there. So now I don't know if Stancliffe is going to go to the end here, because there's still 30 laps on the board to complete. And this would be a bit of an ask for him to triple stint it to the end, I think. So there might be another driver change here, maybe to put Tim in toward the end and then get them home to the flag. But they've just got to make sure that obviously Scott clears his minimums as well. So what did you say that Redmond's got there? About 34 or 35, I think, on the board?
39 by my numbers. And Scott's only done one stint of 12. Okay. So Scott has to do at least another 2 stints before Redmond can get back in the car.
So another 2 12-lap. So 2 12-lap stints for Stancliffe will be enough to see him through the driver minimum. So if he doubles here, does this stint, comes in, stops, does one more, and then comes in for their final time, then they can either elect to keep him in there for the final stint if he feels good going to the flag, or if they want to swap to Tim, they can swap to Tim. Personally, I think maybe Scott might actually just want to do these last few stints. I don't think he'll want to risk the failure of another driver change issue like we've seen a couple of times. They've worked well for them so far today, but I just don't see them risking it. I just think they'll keep him in the car to the end here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think maybe it'll depend entirely on how they feel in that last stint. If Scott's feeling good, they'll do it. But if he's feeling maybe a little under the weather or a little gassed, it might be good for him, a fresh mind, a fresh set of legs, a fresh brain to get in and get them to the end.
Here he is on cue as well. Another one of the men repping the Penrite branding in the background there. Good angle on the sim as well. Actually, you can see out the driver's left-hand side. We can't really see the wheel work there, but car 718 with Scott Stancliffe at the helm, doing quite a good job there. I can see a bit of discussion going on between himself and Redmond. Redmond will be giving the updates as to where they are and where they are positioned relative to everybody else. So that's good job, good teamwork from those guys. They've done it well today. I think they've managed to handle themselves quite well and get all the nitty-gritty stuff sorted before the biggest event. They're one of the driving pair that's got what's the right word for it? They've got something to make up for with regards to what happened last year.
Absolutely, yes. And what's happened in this Endurance Cup as well.
Yeah.
And this race.
Correct. I think they've looked at it from the point of if we can finish in, sort of the top 5 or 6 for them today, that's probably the achievement. I mean, they've gone from a low to a high to a low, and then, the high for them, I think, will just be getting to the flag today.
Yeah, that's a good call. Another pit stop. NZ Snipes has come in through the pits. That's another 12 laps in the book for Snipes. They're now coming out, and I think they'll come out in 11th position behind Justin Cecil.
Yeah.
But that is perfectly on schedule for them. So they were ahead of Daniel Cox and Higo.
Close. It'll be close. Actually, they've just come out just in front of car 237, but they just weren't aggressive enough through turn 1 and was Justin Cecil, but I think they're probably just looking at it again from the point of view of getting to the flag, and Snipes covers down into turn 2, Penrite and Griffin's Bend.
And Cecil, we're expecting Cecil in within 2 laps. So I don't think it's worth fighting for Justin, especially if he's just about to come into the pits.
Yeah, smart call. I think you're right. They're probably just going to look to be towed along here, get to the next stop and go from there. A bit further up the road from NZ Snipes is our old mate Steve Warwick with his good mate Cusbear and Whaler, or RSM Latino as he's more affectionately known in the sim racing community. And these guys, again, they've just plodded along and kept it clean all day. Warwick's been doing, his last lap was a 9.6, so not the quickest car out there, and even by his own admission, not the quickest car by a long shot, but more about getting to the flag at this point and driving some really nice solid lines. They're the first car 1 lap down as well, so they're in position at the moment that should a safety car come out, they will be getting a lucky dog to go around again. I'm just looking to see where the race leader currently is, and he's honing in on the back of Scott Stancliffe, so they'll be the next ones that get they'll be in position for the lucky dog should the safety car come out. But I do expect that Rosella, when did they do that driver change?
They did that drive change in lap 44, so I'm expecting Rosella to come in. Yeah, so not this lap, but the lap after. Someone else that's just come into the pit lane is Daniel Cox. So that's on schedule for him and Nathan Higginson as well. We'll see where he comes out in relation to NZ Snipes, because that would be a resumption of their battle.
There they are, just off to the left there in the pit lane. So Warwick's going to go through ahead of these guys as well. But again, different sequencing.
And they're on the move now. And I reckon NZ Snipes and Justin Cecil are going to grab Cox.
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
Yeah, so in terms of positional gain for NZ Snipes, that's another one of the game of leapfrog that these two cars have been playing for the whole day, car 00 and car 420. They've basically been one in front of the other and then swap around and go again and swap around and go again throughout the whole entire pit stop sequence. So good willing battle between those guys all day long, both teams.
I just want to draw attention, sorry Kiwi, to third place man Lockie Burke, because he's been doing a great job of reeling in that gap to Lewis Wedding and the number 5 has been racing machine. The gap has come down now to just over 2 seconds, with Burke setting laps within a second to a second and a half quicker every single lap at the last few laps of the stint. We're expecting these guys in fairly shortly. They'll be in at the end of next lap as well. I'm expecting Lewis Wedding and Lockie Burke might go 1 lap more, but it's been a great job from Burke to just sort of reel that battle in and maybe even make a move or make the undercut happen during the pit stop.
I was going to draw his attention to the exact same thing. It's amazing how great minds think alike.
What's your excuse?
He got in, you got in before he did.
Yes! Winner, winner.
Also, just having a look at out front, Luke Rosella is actually setting pretty good lap times this time around. It's going to be pretty close to their fastest lap of the race, I think.
Yeah, it'll be very close, I think. Coming to the line this time around, it was green middle sector for him, sort of an okay green first, green middle sector, and it's a 2:05.5. But okay, these guys have got a big luxury at the moment, right? They're 50 seconds in front of the next car, which is Wedding and Brendan Ross. So they've got the luxury of they don't need to push from here. They've got a massive insurance policy right now. All they've got to do is finish the race and then hope that results go their way, because this is the problem that they face. The car that is in third place right now is the car that currently leads the Enduro Cup standings. And the top 3 cars are actually occupying the top 3 spots, but just not in the sequence that they are currently in. So if Burke can do a good job here and actually round up Lewis Wedding prior to the pit stops, it actually gives them even an insurance policy for getting to the flag here, because then they've got an extra position in their pocket and an extra bankload of points in their pocket for when the Enduro Cup is decided at the end of today's race.
I think it's an important move here for Burke to try and, if not get onto the tail, get past Lewis Wedding, at least get onto the tail and see if they can affect the undercut, especially considering we're expecting Burke to stay in that car, so we're not expecting a driver change to take up a little bit of extra time. That'll just give them a bit of peace of mind heading into the last stint of the race. A quick note though, the fastest man on track at the moment isn't quite Luke Rosella. It's actually Will Devonish, who set a 1.555 in 5th place for those guys. He's really got the bit between his teeth at the moment. He's putting in some great inroads to try and reel in Liam Mitch, Lockie Burke, and Lewis Wedding.
And that's that car's best lap of the day as well.
He's got, what, 6 seconds to get up onto the back of Liam Mitch, I think. Meanwhile, that battle for seconds down to less than a second.
It is, and Lockie Burke has he's been reeling in here. Now the traffic is helping here as well because who's that one there? That's a freakish in there as well. Yeah, they haven't come out of the pits now. He might just shortcut the chicane here, and I think he does. Yes, so that's good driving. But he did hold up Lewis Wedding for just a little bit there as well. And the sector times reflect that. There was a 0.4 of a second differential in Sector 1 alone between the two cars on this lap.
So leaders in, so that's Luke Rosella into the pit. So if we're expecting the same schedule for everyone, that means that Lewis Wedding should be in this lap, and Lockie Burke will be able to go one lap further.
Now, what about Lewis Wedding? He's the one that I'm sort of keen in. When are they due to stop next?
This lap.
Okay, so there's two schools of thought here. Either you go for try and make the overcut work, or you cover. What's your call, Kiwi?
Undercut.
Overcut, you mean?
Yeah, undercut. Sorry, yeah.
Flood.
Yeah. I'd go the same. Burke's quicker, much quicker on this set of tyres. Go for that extra lap and get it done.
Well, you're both wrong. That means Wedding must have been fuel saving, because if they were due to stop this lap in on a 12-lap run, they're trying to buy themselves a ticket to the last part of this race. And actually, that's not a bad thing to do, because if they can stop at the end of this lap, they're going to go past Rosella. Both of them have gone past Rosella. This means as well that they're trying to get themselves to lap 69. So if they come in at the end of this lap, they'll get their next stop to lap 69, and then they'll be on fumes at the start. So they've calculated this backwards from the last bit of this race. And that means Burke is going to have to do the same. So that means that Rosella, who is currently in 3rd place, as we bring him up here, having stopped a little bit earlier, is going to have to do a little bit of fuel saving. He might, if he's doing 12-lap stints, he might be a lap short. He's going to have to do a bit of fuel saving in one of these two stints.
Oh, this is tasty stuff here, tasty stuff. Of course, all this goes out the window if there is a safety car. But if not, it means that Lockie Burke and Lewis Wedding are in a very, very good position now with track position and their ability to possibly make it on the end make it to the end with just 2 more stops. Rosella's got a big question mark over his head now, and we'll see where that files out. But that means that the likes of Will Devonish, who's very off sequence, he's still got 2 more stops to go as well, regardless of his position at the moment. Liam Mitch as well with 2 more stops. We're expecting Mitch in at the end of this lap, question mark?
It'll be the same car. The same lap as the sister car. So, so those guys that here they are now, they look like they're getting ready for a stop right now, the car 44 and car 5, and I expect 13 will be in as well, because they were the 2 AAR Mustangs were on the same pit sequence. They're just obviously a little bit further apart.
The question that we're going to have now and for the end of the race is there enough time, as Burke has a little bit of a look at Wedding, but not too willing, is there enough time that Rosella has in his back pocket to be able to save that extra, that fuel to save that pit stop? And there we go.
And there they go, they're coming in to mirror each other. Yeah, I think there is. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I think that yes, there's plenty of time in the back pocket for Luke Rosella, who goes through. Was there a bit of contact there at the pit entrance, was there?
Yeah, the 2 Mustangs got into each other. I think Lockie Burke just misjudged his braking slightly and still went the pit lane speed. But
and we'll keep an eye on that one. Here comes the sister car as well, car 13, Liam Mitch at the wheel. Now, let's just run some numbers here, gentlemen, for these guys. We know Hans Brunswick is good in terms of being on having completed his driver minimums. Lewis Wedding and Brendan Ross. I think is Lewis good at the moment, or has he got to do more laps?
Let's do a quick math. He did 9 laps at the beginning, and he's been in since lap 32. So 57, 32. That's 25 laps.
He's clear.
So
he'll be clear.
He's done enough.
Yeah, okay, so I think maybe Brendan Ross to the end from here as they both leave, and Brendan Ross is in the car. Lockie Burke is still in the car, and they just get out ahead. So the 2 cars that were in 2nd and 3rd, now nose to tail, are going to leave the garage nose to tail. This is going to be a little tasty battle to the end of the race here as well. We expect that these guys will stay in the car for the remaining 24 laps.
Wow, it's gone quick, hasn't it? We've just ticked over 2 hours, but it doesn't feel like that at all. Lime Mitch stays behind the wheel. He's going to come out just behind Scott Stancliffe. So Stancliffe's done a good job there to make that position.
There he goes, leaving the lane. So Stancliffe now ahead up into 5th place. And the only one that's in sequence here that's an issue for stopping is Will Devonish. So he's off sequence to everybody else. But he's got to do 2 more stops. But he's going to have a significantly shorter last stop, or wherever he decides to take that shorter stop. They're not going to have to put as much juice in.
So let's have... Oh, go ahead, Kiwi.
I was going to say, so this Luke Rosella battle you're talking about, so he's got 56 seconds in the hand over the Ross Burke machine, so you're not going to lose that much time for fuel saving for the sake of 1 lap.
No, and I think that for the moment, that's why when Flood said there was a big question mark over his head, I didn't think the question mark was probably that large because of the deficit that the cars behind them had, being nearly 50 seconds. I think there's they can very easily make a lap of fuel over one of these stints just by fuel saving and then be good to the finish. It's just they've got to find... It's only 1 lap. It's only 1 lap. And of course, as Flood also said, if a safety car comes out, it nullifies that situation for them anyway, but then it also brings the whole field back together and everybody will be in.
Absolutely. So I've just done some maths to see who's done their minimum driving time. So it looks like of the front group, Kurt Stenberg's done, Peter Savage is done, Lewis Wedding is done, Hans Brunswick is done, Scott Stancliffe and Tim Redmond. Redmond's done, so that's good for them. Lime Mitch and Ujit Mishra. Mishra has done, I think that's 33 laps, so he's done exactly what he needs to do. So he's finished up there. So all those guys are good to go to the end on their single driver. NZ Snipes and Cheese, they still need to get Cheese back up behind the wheel for at least another stint, another 12 laps. But otherwise, they're looking pretty. Daniel Cox and Nathan Higginson, Higo is finished up. Peter Thrower is finished in the number 56 Team Kiwi, Ultima. So Freakish can go to the end. Darren Kemp and Steve Burko, by my numbers, I think still need to get Burko behind the wheel for some amount of time. In fact, I'm expecting a pit stop from them at the end of this lap. So that's the top 10. So most guys have cleared that requirement. The only ones who haven't are NZ Snipes and Cheese. But they should be good, with Cheese just needing to do 1 more stint.
All right, so everything's pretty much settled down as it is now. The drivers that are in the cars outside of NZ Snipes are pretty much going to be good till the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so that's important news. So in terms of a driver change situation, there's only 1 more team that actually needs to make that happen, and it's car 420 with Cheese needing to get behind the wheel. Everybody else is good. And driver minimum's clear. The next hurdle for all of them just means they have to get to the flag at the end of the race. Also, when you look down the order as well, with Brad Services now back behind the car, or the wheel of car 45, the Peugeot Le Dufour Motorsport PBF Mechanic, whatever the hell its name is. It's a mouthful in its own right. Those guys are 3 laps down, but even with them both completing the driver minimums as well of 33 laps, even if they're 3 laps down, they're still going to, and they see the checkered flag, they're still going to be classified, and there won't be any problems there. Cut back to this battle for 5th and 6th place. So the Lime Mitch has started to close the margin down a little bit on the Kiwi Sim Sports Commodore of Scott Stancliffe as they head into the chase. Coming from a long way back here, closes right up under the brakes, but no room there. And the next opportunity is down here at Murray's, which Stancliffe covers. And just got to be careful. Let's make sure you allow enough room, but Mitch saw it coming, just eased the throttle just a little bit. And they continue on for another lap. This is going to be a good battle for the last spot inside the top 5 as it stands right now. Probably will be, at the end of the day, the lap or the last position will change, I would imagine, before the next round of pit stops.
More than likely. And I think this battle, Lime Mitch has definitely been the faster driver. His last few laps, he's been consistently 2-3 tenths ahead. So I was going to say it might be a matter of time. It might be a matter of 1 corner.
Okay.
There he goes.
Now calling out as well, that looks like Steve Burko's just been in to get that job done as well, as Mitch goes right around the outside of Griffin's Bend, and that's a beautiful pass. Beautifully
Great
constructed
move.
pass. One of the best moves we've seen all day. Probably the pass of the day, I think. We've not seen anybody really have a full send moment at that part of the course. Most of it's been happening at turn 1, the last corner, and at the chase, but that's a beautiful constructed pass. We now get a new race fastest lap for Luke Rosell of 204.642, lowers the lap record again by a couple hundredths.
So Luke Rosell is going to win the bragging rights on that battle.
Yeah, he has, in terms of the inter-teammate battle with who's actually been, who actually has the race lap record to their name. It now is in favour of Luke Rosella.
Yep. Now the interesting thing here will be line match. What is he? 18 seconds is a massive margin to make up on the on his teammate and currently in fourth, Lockie Burke. So we'll keep an eye on that as the race develops. 21 laps to go.
Yep.
So the second lap's a big ask.
It is indeed a big ask. I think Flat may have just stepped away for a few seconds just to sort a couple of things out, but all good there. And we want to take a bit more of a look, because remember further up the order, so the sister cars here, Lockie Burke, actually personal best for Lockie Burke, and that car's best lap of the race as well that time around, 206.009. Same for Brendan Ross as well, 205.747. Not only his fastest lap of the race for that car as well. And Will Devonish ahead, it was 206.530. So I mean, he was a second off his that car's best lap, but he's got a good 29 seconds on the, or actually almost 30 seconds on these guys at the moment.
Hello, I am back. Sorry.
I was going to say, so Will Devonish, does he owe us 2 stops still?
He does. He owes us
one and a bit.
A big stop and a little stop. So this is where we need to fully appreciate where this is going to happen. So we look towards Will Devonish actually. And it looks like he might be coming in this lap. So this is 20 laps to go. Now, schools of thought here. Do you want to take, you'll probably take the biggest stop now and get it over and done with. And that'll give you 12 laps. That'll get you up to lap 73. Then you take a slightly shorter fill. You're probably going to have to take tyres. You're not going to have a choice. You want to have your best set of boots on at the back end of this race, because he's then going to come right out in the battle with Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke, and actually could influence the decision that decides how this Enduro Cup fully unfolds. And here he comes.
And that's a 13-lap stint for Devonish, so he's actually eked out an extra lap of fuel despite being one of the fastest guys on track.
That's very impressive, considering the laps he's been turning have been in the mid-sixes as well. So very, very good job here for Will Devonish as he comes into the lane. Keep an eye on that.
I do have to make an apology to the NZ Sim Sports team, Tanifa. Cheese actually started that car, so I had the first stint under NZ Snipes for some reason, but Cheese started that car, and so he's done his laps because he was in the car till about lap 40. So Snipes is into the end on that one, and they're sitting pretty in 7th at the moment.
They are indeed sitting pretty at the moment, and they got a little. They're the last car a lap on the lead lap currently as well. So there's a good margin there for those guys at the moment. Now here we go. So again, back to this battle over currently what is 2nd and 3rd on the road. Brendan Ross still leading Lockie Burke. This is just ebbed and flowed a little bit between these two. Burke was the quicker of the two last time around. The lap prior to that, Ross was the quicker of the two. So these two are very much locked in an intense game of four-wheeled chess, I think you call it at the moment. Not a high-stakes game of poker just yet. They're not poking their noses into areas they shouldn't be poking their noses into.
Not yet.
Not just yet. Not just yet. But I think
we're almost at that point.
Yeah, the important thing I think for Burke is whether or not he wants to try and make a pass now or in this stint, or whether he wants to wait till the last stint of the day. There's some differing lines through that corner there, because I think they're going to need that insurance policy as the lap record gets lowered again, now to a 4.5 for Rosella. Now this is probably starting to get to the back end of their stint as well, I think, anyway. I think, what are they into this stint now?
No, they're only 6 laps in,
6
so
laps in. They're halfway.
I think this is the crossover point where the tyres are perfectly at the temperature and the fuel's starting to come down. So Rosella's putting the hammer down at the moment.
Yeah, so he's putting the hammer down because he knows he obviously needs to buy a little bit of time for the fuel saving anyway. So they've got 1 minute and 3 seconds on this battle for second place at the moment.
Yeah, and just to cover off from Will Devonish, it looks like he did his big stop now, like you called before, Steve. So he'll have the one to go. As we see, goes to tail action to the chase.
Yeah, here we go again. So Ross is having the back end of that Mustang absolutely monstered by car 44 at the moment. And is he going to cover down here into the final corner? No, but they've got a little bit of traffic as well. I just think that Burke has probably got to get a pass done in this lap. He's got to get it done as soon as he possibly can. He's actually going to need that insurance policy, I think, after the pit stops are over, because they've been in, they've done the pit stop sequence, they're on the same sequence. So if he stays behind him for the whole entire stint, he needs to come out ahead of him at some point, and they won't do that in the pit lane because they've both got to stop, they've both got to put the same amount of fuel in, and they're both going to take tyres, and they're both going to stay in the car. So they're not going to gain an advantage by trying to do a short fill on pit road. They're going to have to tank the car and do the remaining 12 laps for their stint. They've got no choice. So I think he's got to execute it now and then leave the pits ahead of Brendan Ross. So when they come in together, he comes in ahead, and then when they leave the pits, he leaves ahead. I'm just not 100% sure whether or not he wants to be the chaser or the chasee for the last 12 laps. So I think I'd rather be the chasee rather than the chaser for the last 12 laps.
Either way.
But then again, people refer to me as one of the best defenders in the community. So that's my stance on the issue. I don't know where you guys stand with it all. Ross Roostertails through McPhillamy Park.
It's really beginning to show the pressure here that Ross is under. Burke is all over the rear of the team has-been Mustang as they dive down the dipper.
Oh, Burke with a mistake! Burke with a mistake. What did he do there? He did have a bit of moment. That's given Ross a little bit of breathing room for that one. I don't think he was probably expecting the car to do that on him. Time for a look at the Ryco Filters replay here. We might actually go on board with Lockie Burke. So he had a face full of dust here as Ross left some nice rooster tails there. And down through the S's. And what did he do here? Did he just... He just overcorrected. Just overcorrected on the exit of the dipper.
Yeah, it just pivoted away from him. So it lost quite a fair bit of time for Lockie Burke. So he's going to do the hard work to gain that all back again. It ended up being just about a second that he's lost in that sector alone.
No other damage done to the car from what I can tell, though, and he's obviously carrying on.
So shouldn't be too bad here, and that's cost him. Yeah, it's cost him a good couple of seconds there. So Brendan Ross the 2:06.4 that time around, Lockie Burke the 2:07.5, so 1.1 seconds in a lap time. So that's good for Brendan Ross. A little bit of breathing room, and already moving around trying to break the toe. Make sure he doesn't try and drag that AAR Mustang right up to the rear of him again.
Just in that little mix as well, Scott Stancliffe has made a pit stop. So he came in at lap 62, so just keeping track of where he is. He's just ahead of Daniel Cox, who... Are we expecting a pit stop from Coxie soon? Yes, we are, within about 3 laps.
Yeah, there's got to be another one there for that particular car as well, and then they should be good to the finish from there as well. If they come in, well, they're a lap down at the moment, so if they come in, which would be lap 63 for them, even if they come in 2 laps from now, lap 65, that will get there. Oh, they'll come up a little bit short. They'll come up. They'll need some help. So they're going to come up a little bit short. And they need a safety car.
And NZ Snipes has also been through the pits, and we know that because NZ Snipes and Daniel Cox are separated on track, and that never happens. So there must have been a pit stop there somewhere.
Well, here comes Cox now. He's just in the background shot there, going into the pit lane now. So they're going to have to splash and dash this, or they're going to need some help from the safety car, because right now. For them, they've ticked over.
That's 18 laps. That's too far.
It's way too far. They need multiple safety cars to get home from here. And they're going to have to, they'll have to splash and dash this probably at about lap 7. I would probably say go in and blitz it and probably come in about lap 75. So just put the hammer down for, say, 10 laps, come in and get it done. Just split this last 18 lap stint straight down the middle now. There really is no point in going the full distance on the stint and then coming in for a splash and dash. I would just take a slightly shorter fill, because fuel's a limiting factor. I would take a slightly shorter fill at this stop, just enough to get you, say, 10 laps worth of fuel. Get out there, barrel through 9 laps, come in, put the fuel in to get to the flag, and another set of tyres and go again, and just make it 2 shorter stops overall rather than 1 long stop and 1 short stop.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, Nathan Higginson in the chat is saying that he doesn't think they're good to the end because they were expecting yellows. So that's where their strategy has fallen apart. They've been doing consistent 12 laps under Higo's wheel, but this has been a 10-lap stint for 2 pairs of 10-lap stints for Cox. So I think that's where they've decided to put their their sort of marker down. So I reckon, lap 73, 72, we'll see them in again.
Yeah, I think so. There's an NFL coach in America whose name's Ron Rivera. They used to refer to him as the riverboat gambler, and these guys have gambled, and now they're up the boat. The boat's up the creek without paddle, so they've got no choice. Their gamble hasn't paid off.
That's a very interesting reference. We cover all sports here.
We cover all the sports. We cover all the sports, and we cover all the angles, much like the 82 cameras that are in play around this track. It's truly amazing. There's 4 different cycles of cameras. There's 82 of them in total, covering absolutely every car. And not to mention all the onboard cameras as well. There's 3 onboard cameras for every car, one in the cockpit, one out looking at the roof, and one looking out the back. So
we've got a yellow flag coming down the mountain.
Yes, we do. It's for Brad Severs, who's lost his bonnet, is facing the wrong way at the elbow.
Okay, so we've got Daniel Cox is actually about to come across that part of the circuit here.
We've just lost Line Mitch. We've just lost Line Mitch from the server, I think, just coming over the S's. He's lagged out completely on my screen in the wall. I can't see him. Is he gone?
Oh, just having a look here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that. We'll have to look at that in a minute, but Will Devenish now comes around that part of the course as well, and I think Brad Severs is trying to get that car turned around at the moment. Let's see if we can find out what's happened to Ly Mitch. Yeah, I think maybe there's
He's gone.
Yeah,
just lag.
There's a complete lag out here, so that's car number 13 out of business.
So it won't be a back-to-back event for Ly Mitch. I'm just seeing him encounter the wall and the S's on repeat here, unfortunately for Mitch McGovern and the All-Australian Racers Mustang. That's done. That's gone. There's no way he can get that back to the pits.
Yep, so they're done and dusted. And yeah, they've now gone a lap down to the race leader as well. So they're stationary at that part of the circuit, so they're not going to continue any further, which means I think the car on screen here, Scott Stankley, is probably going to go past. Yeah, he does. So yeah, they're out of commission. That's game, set and match for car 13, which means that car 44 has now not got a wingman to help them out a bit later on down the piece. So they're going to have to fight this fight for the Enduro Cup on their own. And well, at the end of the day, Will Devenish was hunting down Ly Mitch for a little bit there. He was closing the gap down very, very steadily. He was good 0.6 of a second quicker most laps. Now moves up into 4th place. So this is playing out into an interesting sort of debate now about this short stop that's got to come up for Will Devenish at some point. When does it happen? And where do they feed in relative to Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke? I think they're going to be behind him. At the moment, they're a good 20 seconds in arrears, but the short stop's probably going to lop a little bit of that off. I still think they're going to be behind, but they're going to have a much lighter car and probably a much faster car as well. Very much influence the outcome of this, not this race, but the Enduro Cup overall.
I think at this point you just go until you hit that 9 lap mark, or you encounter traffic, whatever comes first. If you encounter traffic, get in.
I think that's a pretty good call there, actually, especially if you start thinking that you might encounter traffic over the top of the mountain. You might need Peter Savage just to have his wits about him and just be watching the live races and see where the traffic is ahead and make that decision for Will. And we have seen Will with a full head of steam in the latter stages of the other Enduro Cup rounds. So a scary eyes-on, angry Will Devenish is something that everyone's going to have their wits about in the latter stages of the race, because he certainly has been aggressive, and hopefully he's able to toe that line a bit more effectively this time around.
And we just saw, I think, ahead, the Daniel Cox machine is about 300 metres up the road, so still has a few laps before he can counter sim, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right there as well. Guys, I want to have a look at who, apart from car number 2 out in front, who's pretty much led the majority of the laps all day. I'm actually looking down the field to see who probably is the driver of the day so far. I'm going to throw a wild one out there. I'm going to say these guys, Blackshaw's car 50, with Cuz at the wheel. Now, he's just made a little mistake there as the leaders are coming through the cutting. But these guys have made 8 places since the drop of the green flag. They've kept it out of trouble for the most part. They've driven a very, very solid race all day, and I think they've got to be right up there in terms of driving pair of the day so far.
Yeah, they've done well. They've managed to... They were engaged in a battle for a long time with Lockie Locke and Justin Cecil, between RSM Latino and Steve Warwick.
And look at this. This is smart play here as well with how they're letting the traffic through. That's really good driving from Cuz.
And that's just perfect experience right there. He knows exactly where he is on track, exactly who's around him, and exactly where he needs to be. We are expecting a pit stop from them at the end of this lap, so that might drop them down behind Justin Cecil, Daniel Cox, maybe even Steve Burko, but I think that's a fair shout. I actually want to point towards the pair of Kiwi Sim Sports machines. The number 56 rather, which is just coming to the pit lane now for Team Tapua, Freakish, and NZ Snipes, who's in behind the wheel of the number 420. They are going to be up 6 places and into 6th place once they pass Freakish, who's in the pit lane. So I think both of them have done an incredible job after being effectively nowhere in qualifying yesterday.
On top of that, they had some pretty average performances at the Gold Coast as well. Their Sandown performances weren't too bad, but the Gold Coast ones definitely didn't go according to plan for them. And they've redeemed themselves today. I think this is a big win for the Kiwi Sim Sports crews. All 3 of the Kiwi Sim Sports cars, no matter whether it's the main team or the satellite team, they're currently running in the top 10 at the moment. So there'll be big smiles all round. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of a Discord party maybe a bit later on as well for these guys. But I would agree with you that they're right up there in contention as well. I mean, it's easy to look at the heavy hitters and say, you know what, they're leading the race by 1 minute and 10 seconds, and, you know, driver of the day is pretty much out of commission for them. It's a pretty more a shoe-in rather. Not so much so. You've got to look at how everybody has raced throughout the day. I mean, yes, the leaders haven't really put a foot wrong all day, but it's more about everybody else behind them and how well they've battled with everybody else and how they've been very, very smart with pit strategy calls and, you know, made their way through this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of pit strategy calls, leader is in now.
Yeah, he is indeed.
And is that enough to get to the end? It's the end of lap 68, so it would be a 13
lap stint to the end. So they're going to have to do all the fuel saving in the last phase of the race.
That's always a risky strategy.
Well, it is a risky strategy, but given they've got 1 minute and 10 seconds up their sleeve, I think it's probably very easily done. There's a lot of lift and coast that can happen here. There's first control penalty for Justin Cecil. That's in car 237. And having a look through the field, what have they done there? Have they been done for pit lane speeding?
First ones
all day, and it comes at lap 60, or the beginning of lap 68, or end of lap 68, start of lap 69. So that's an awfully long time to go without a penalty being issued. So that's well done from all the field. And, well, if that's the only one for the day, that's there's going to be, I think, a few ribbing jokes going on at the end of this one saying you were the only car that got a penalty for the whole entire race.
Don't worry, I think Ben Hall came in before as well.
Yeah,
I think.
Kurt Stenberg in the live chat saying that they know what they're doing with regards to car number 2, and I think that means they know they're going to be saving in this last stint. So they've managed to get it done. 6 stops in total. And Roselle will be in this car to the end, and yeah, there'll be fuel saving in this stint.
And Kurt certainly knows about fuels. Oh, there's a bit of a weird one on the back straight, the Conrod straight. Brad Severs and Steve Burko, I think that is, almost coming to blows, and Steve tracking down the grass for about 300 metres. That was a weird one.
A bit of a weird one, and worthy of a look on the replay here. Now, we knew that Severs was already missing the bonnet. He was a lap down. Now, he's been in a bit of trouble before, I think, as Brad Severs, for some of the tactics that have gone on here. Now, Burko was trying to get the toe, and look at this. So Severs is saying, go around me, and he went the wrong way.
He just drifted to the inside there, just at the wrong moment.
That's the
a weird one.
The pass in the grass. I mean, they talk about passes in the grass in NASCAR that happen every now and again when you've got to run through the grass on the inside of the tri-oval. That's what they all say, but they never do. That was a pass in the grass.
Absolutely.
That was an unnecessary pass in the grass.
Yeah, an unnecessary pass in the grass. So
go the other way.
A bit of a weird one, I think, probably as well. I think Severs had moved to the right there, thinking, you know what, the line sort of naturally starts to move back towards the left-hand side of the circuit anyway on approach to the chase. And that's what he was trying to do, give him that run. So he could just go, you know what, I'll just ease out of the throttle. I'm a bit slower than you. And Burko's sort of almost like asleep at the fence, and he's in the fence again, and almost a second time, and almost bins the 45 machine.
Whoa. Very, very tense stuff late on. Wouldn't want to make a big mistake and bring a safety car out right at this stage of the race. Pandemonium.
You wouldn't want to do it right now, because there's also drivers that are yet to stop for the final time. I mean, they would then get that free kick under safety car as well. Justin Cecil serves the drive-through penalty.
Just wanted to bring a note back on Kurt Stenberg and the fuel saving, as I reckon we've got the Brendan Ross and Lachlan Burke cars in for their last pit stop. They should be good to the end from here. Easy done. Kurt Stenberg last year in the ASC Bathurst 1000 did the largest stint of the race. I think it was something along the lines of, I'm going to have to go right back into the memory banks here. 38 laps. They were doing 1 times fuel, but it was just a ludicrous amount of laps that he managed to do on the final stint to make it to the end without taking an extra stop. Almost snatched the race victory as well on that occasion, but just fell short in the very last throws of the dice in that one. So he certainly knows how to fuel save around here. Let's hope he can, for their sake, that he has the ability to pass on that knowledge to his teammate in Luke Rosella.
Indeed. So Burko now in for the final time for his last stop in car 7. Still got eyes on the 2 Mustangs in the lane. There they are. And Burke leaves, and Ross just leaves in enough time, so they leave the way they came in.
Very, very close though.
Yeah, and the strange thing was that Burke was moving before Ross was, so there was a very sort of small hesitation just in how that all panned out. And now they're on the move again. Now the big attention turns to Will Devonish and what's going to happen with him, because he's still got to get a stop done. And he's got 11 laps or 12 laps to run now, better part of 12 laps to run. When does he come in to get this stop done? I mean, he could come in any time from this point onwards now, but he's got he's got warm tyres. He needs to probably run about another 2 or 3 laps while his tyres are in the operating window relative to Burke and Ross. Oh, there's lucky break there as well, as Devonish comes across the John McDonald and Ben Hall Mustang and had a moment through the dipper. There was a very brief yellow flag there for a moment, and they got going at precisely the right time before Devonish arrived on the scene.
Lucky for them. Oh, I think we've lost RSM Latino. I think he's had a big wallop of the wall at Griffiths Bend.
Oh, we haven't lost him, but he's had a major issue, and that car's got it's got a front right puncture as well. So heartbreaking for these guys. What did Cuz happen to do? Actually, yeah, he was almost straight on at Penrite Griffin's Bend here. So just on the brake, just way too late on the brakes. Bang!
Oof, that's a nasty hit.
That's a big hit. Lucky not to lose the engine in that car as well. So off they go.
And then again at the
cutting,
as well.
Yes, he's going to have to be really super careful here, because he's also got faster cars coming up behind him, Stancliffe and Snipes, and he shortcuts the S straight away here. He's got to be super careful. Card does not want to turn left at the moment, and he's going to do his best here, maybe just to get to the elbow, and then once he gets around there, he'll be able to pull around. Actually, the car looks like it's sort of partially still turning to the left. It may not be as severe a puncture as first thought. Maybe it's more suspension issue than it is a puncture. He's still going at a fairly decent rate. He's getting the blue flags now, so Stancliffe and Burko will go through. Now Burko's, this is the position for Burko. Oh, it cuts off the road as well there. Got to be really careful here as they all scoot through. So Burko gets a place, Stancliffe gets past the lap car, and they continue on.
Always nervous when you see stuff like that happen with lap cars. Oh, that's too close for my liking. I've got eyes on the battle for second place overall. Third place overall. Lachlan Burke right on the tail again of Brendan Ross, and these guys have been attached. To use a Madbird saying, nuts to butts for the last part of the race.
Yeah, indeed.
They're really working each other hard as they get into the last stages.
Yeah, Turmo's the next man up the road from them as well. These guys are good till the end too, as we keep saying. So they've got a real battle on their hands. It's just, again, where Devonish comes out now. Pete Savage in the live chat reckons that Will's going to come out maybe about 10 or so seconds behind these guys. So if that was the case, they'd be finishing 4th. They'd have a lot of deficit to make up in the closing stages of this race. And it may be a bridge too far, depending on how it all goes.
Having said that, he is currently the fastest of those 3 on track. So if he can get another 5 seconds now before he comes into the pit lane, you never know.
Now,
he could play into this battle.
Yeah, now what's the lap count here? So it's a 6-4 for Devonish on that lap, which is it's a pretty green lap. There's actually it's not the fastest lap for that car, but it's a good solid lap. The two on the opposite side are on their last lap were out laps. So we'll get a read on the time. So sector by sector, Devonish was a 10th quicker than Ross in Sector 1. He was on par with Ross in Sector 2. His last sector was a 38.7. And these guys are going to catch Termo for lap traffic at probably on Mountain Straight here. So we'll get a good read on what their sector times are for Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke. And Ross's last sector across the line is a 38.6. So Devonish was actually a 10th of a second slower, and Burke was actually a bit quicker in the Sector 2, but he did have a bit of an average Sector 1, so he made that gap up in the last sector as well. So if I was Devonish, you would almost think about getting in fairly soon, because he has cost himself a 10th of a second. It's not much, but he has cost himself a 10th of a second that last lap. He probably needs to think about getting in sooner, and try and minimise the amount of deficit that I have to carry. Right now, what is it? We'll look at it on track there. He's it's about 28.5 seconds, there or thereabouts. 36, 46, 56, 06, and 16, no, sorry, 38. Close to 38 seconds.
Going to be a lot tighter than I think we think. Also, Luke Rosella's setting times of 2:06.4, so he's in fuel safe mode for sure.
Yeah, it's gone backwards. So yeah, I think that's in the fuel saving mode 100% there. And
he picked up a track cut last lap around, so I wonder that was in Sector 3, so he must have
too much curb at the chase. Probably too much curb at the chase. The spot where Will Devonish is here, that curb right there, that's the one that's got a few drivers. There was a couple of adjustments to the track about halfway through the 2 weeks worth of practice, because it was found there were a few drivers just taking a few liberties with that one there, so that was tidied up a little bit. And that's usually the only spot that you can be done in Sector 3. Sector 3 is essentially the exit of the elbow all the way down to the final corner and the start-finish line. I mean, that being said, there have been 1 or 2 people stung at the final corner for too much curb as well, so it would have been one of those two.
I think it was the middle curb in the chase. Just quickly, a shout out to Mr. Walshy in the chat, Brian Walsh, down in Tasmania. Was going to be around for the event, maybe trying to pick up a drive, but unfortunately, due to the lockdown, the snap lockdown in Tasmania, he's unable to have done that, and not with his rig at the moment. So it's good to see you with us, Walshy, and hope you're doing well in this weird time. As we've got now 8 laps left to run at the head of the field.
Ticking over 2 hours and 40 minutes as well, or about to tick over 2 hours and 40 minutes in this race. So it has been a very, very fast 500, and it's actually going to be slightly less than 3 hours, the duration.
Hot pace.
We've just had a pit stop for NZ Snipes.
Yeah, he is.
Makes sense.
He's on screen here, and he's ahead of Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke, but he is a lap down to the race leader. So they have come in and serviced themselves for the final time.
And that means that we should be expecting Daniel Cox in within the next few laps, because they were on a pretty similar strategy. And that also means that we should see Scott Stancliffe in pretty soon as well.
Yep, so Stancliffe is ahead of Cox on the road at the moment. But again, Cox is the first car 1 lap down. And I think you're right. Cox, I think, is expected in the next, or he has to come in fairly soon. They've done 72 laps. Well, they're on their 72nd lap, I apologise. So they've got probably 2 more to go, get in, get the fuel into the car, get the tyres on the car, and then go. Like they're pretty much at a point now where they've got Peter Thrower in the car 56 behind them as well. And this is 4 positions, so they're going to drop a couple of spots here. And behind them, there's Thrower as he approaches the chase. And then NZ Snipes is just exiting the elbow now. So there's a little bit of... they're going to drop some spots anyway, they look at it here, but that means NZ Snipes and the team Tapua car number 56 will go up a couple of spots, and we know car 420 doesn't have to stop again, but I don't think car 56 does either.
They're right on the border. Freakish brought that car in on lap 66. So they're going to be right on the bubble. I don't think they can make it home, unfortunately. I reckon they're going to be 1 or 2 laps short.
Yeah, being a lap down as well, that means they've got to do 1 lap less, so they're probably about 2 laps short.
Speaking of pit stops, Will Devonish is in the pit lane as the 2 cars ahead of him just coming on the front straight now. So he is back into 4th place, and he's on the move now.
All right, so let's see where the prediction is. So Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke go through. The next man we want is Will Devenish. Here he is exiting the pits, and he is about half the length of Mountain Straight behind. So by the time he gets up to full speed, Pete Savage is probably going to be correct. It's going to be the better part of about 10 seconds, and there's lap traffic in between them as well. So Termo chasing NZ Snipes again, not for position. He's behind this two pair at the moment. There they are to back a shot there. And then Will Devenish is just rounding, Will Devenish rounding Griffin's men. There go the two leaders, also not two leaders, the two lap cars ahead of him and disappearing up the hill. And then about another 3 or 4 seconds further up the road is this two pair of Ross and Burke.
So it's going to be about 8 to 9 seconds with 8 laps to go. That's a tall order for Will Devenish to get.
These are going to be qualifying laps. They have to be qualifying laps, every single one, for there to be any hope. Otherwise, it's a safety car and a late race restart to maybe make one spot and change the balance of this championship.
Exactly, yeah. One spot's enough to take the championship away from the 44.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and this is the thing too, because if Burke wanted to get that insurance policy before the last round of stops, he didn't do it. So now he's just got to hold station. He doesn't have to do anything silly. He's just got to stay with Brendan Ross for the whole entirety of the last 9 or so laps. He doesn't have to do anything silly. They've just got to stay ahead of Devenish. They've got to basically hope that they can get to the line before they get caught by Devenish, and it's 9 seconds. 9 seconds is the margin.
It'll be tight. It'll be super, super tight as they come through to finish off lap 74 of this, the Bathurst 500. There's still other battles up and down the field at the moment as well. Daniel Cox and Peter Thrower are line astern as they come up Mountain Straight. We're expecting both of them to make a pit stop at some point in the latter part of the race. And in fact, they're going to go side by side up into the Griffin's Bend. Peter Thrower down the inside of Daniel Cox, forces him out onto the wide part of the circuit, and Thrower will go through. So that's another position for Peter Thrower and Freakish. They've made their way up 5 places after just missing out on the shootout.
Good job, and a very authoritative pass. Oh, and a moment for Daniel Cox as well off the exit of the cutting too. So if there's any hope of getting that spot back, it's just evaporated. But on top of that, they've actually got to stop again too. So when they stop, they're going to drop a spot to NZ Snipes, who's currently 8th on the road. Where's Burko in this? So the 9th place car, Burko, is actually on a pit just coming through turn 1 at the moment. So it might be safe. Who just rooster-tailed through the gravel at the McPhillamy Park? Because I saw there was a plume sitting in the air there. I wasn't sure.
Might have been Cox.
I know. I was looking at Cox on the screen here. So it was either Thrower ahead, or it was I think there was RSM Latino might have been a bit further ahead of Peter Thrower, I think, at one point as well. So if we look, and there's a car ahead of him. I think it is Cuz at the moment, who's come out after repairing that damage.
It's actually Steve Warwick.
That's Warwick, sorry, Steve. Yeah, they've swapped.
Yep.
Go ahead, Scott Sandcliffe's just come in to do his last stop of the race, so that ticks that off. He'll stay in 5th place.
Correct.
And stay behind the wheel.
And stays behind the wheel as well. So yeah, as we suspected, they're not taking any risks with that car in the latter stages. They're getting that job done. They're on the move again up Mountain Straight. They've come out ahead of the lapped car of Rhodey and Brad Severs. Rhodey's got back behind the wheel for that one. There comes in the pit lane. Yep, so that confirms our strategy. So he's splitting this last stint down the middle, as close to as down the middle as he can.
And that should see NZ Snipes return to 7th position.
Yeah, he is. He's coming around the final corner now. He's actually bringing Will Devenish along with him as well. So they'll get through here. Last pit stop for Termo as well. Couple of late splash and dashes here. And a couple quick flashes of lights for NZ Snipes. Says, go through, Will, while you've got the chance, and get it done. And he does. Now the tension turns to this man. Can Steve Burko make up another spot with the car of Daniel Cox in the pit lane? Going to be a tall order, I think.
He's got a long way to go. Yeah, he's just coming through the chase now, and Cox is still getting fueled, but that's a long way to go. He's going to get through the chase.
I'm wondering if there's a damage repair. Oh, they're on the move now, so they're going to hold position. So Cox will come out comfortably ahead. Oh, there's a little bit of a moment there at the pit entrance because Turbo wanted to go in and Cox was leaving, so they had to sort that out. Cox is going to come out with about the front half of the front straight as his advantage. So there he goes. And there's Burko in the background. It's about 3 or 4 seconds of difference there.
So we've got a note coming through the live chat that Kurt Stenberg reckons that based on his sums, if it stays as it is, it'll be the Kurt Stenberg Luke Rosella machine that wins the Enduro Cup by 4 points.
I was doing the math off the top of my head. I wasn't quite sure when I did it this morning how that was all panning out. So maybe I'll be right. We're going to have a bit of a sticky beak at it and take a look and see how it all goes.
If Scott Nolan is watching, how about you just plug the provisional numbers in now and do the maths for us, because we've got the spreadsheet up in front of us. Scott sent us a photo earlier of how he's watching the race. He's sitting in a hot tub with a nice coldie, nice frothy, and a bucket hat on. So he's certainly enjoying the day. So cheers for watching, Scott. And yeah, if you can help us out with that one, that would be absolutely cracker, mate.
Actually, I'm actually doing it sort of right now at the moment. I think Scott and I are actually just trying to sort of do the same thing at the same time to try and work that one out. And yeah, looking at the points, yeah, it actually will be that case. So in actual fact, the pass that has to happen, Burke has to get that pass done. So he's got no choice. They actually can't sit there and rest on their laurels. They've actually got to get a pass done.
And Burke is... Oh, Rossi's just at the moment trying to pass traffic through Hell Corner. I was just about to say that Burke has actually fallen off the back of Rossi by just a little bit, but that might change the ebb and flow of the battle with that little mistake. But the gaps now between Burke and Ross it's stretching out. It's almost 2 seconds. So there was that moment of impetus earlier on where Burke had the fire under him and was really reeling Ross in, and that's kind of gone away since he made that mistake coming down the mountain. So I wonder if he's suffering some sort of damage from that little bit of contact with the wall, or he's just not finding the tyre in the right spot for him in this stint, because he hasn't really been able to mount the same challenge this time around as he did in the last stint.
And I don't think we need to worry about Will Devenish. Yes, he was a second faster last lap, but he needs to be much quicker than that now. So
5 laps to go, you're right.
It's going to come into these two, this battle for the championship. Luke Rosella can do no more, just a case of what can Rocky Burke do.
Yeah, they've basically done everything that they need to do today. They've led the most amount of laps. I mean, there's no points for leading the most amount of laps. It's when you lead the last lap that counts. So they're quite comfortably going to win this one today, and have pretty much put the shoe on the right foot. They've got one hand on the Enduro Cup title, and it's all about what happens behind them. That's the key piece of the puzzle here.
A little bit of traffic for Rossi to contend with as he goes through the exit of the elbow. It's Matt Cecil and Taipan, but Burke hasn't been able to make that same pass through. And is he going to have to dive down at the chase? Not quite.
A little bit of a lock break from Brennan Ross there as well. And then the AP SimSport Mustang just sat at the wrong spot for Lockie Burke as well, I think as well. It's just cost him maybe another 10th or 2. 4 laps to run for these guys. 4 laps left in the Enduro Cup for 2021.
Oh.
Bit of a twitchy moment for Burke. He's really giving it what for on the exit. It's starting to hurt.
I think if we've just done the sums now and figured it out, I think that information might have just gotten to Burke, and he might be trying to just overdrive the car just a little bit. He does need to make that pass on Brendan Ross, but the gap is, after just 2 corners, it blew out to another half a second advantage. So Burke needs to find something here. He needs to find something deep within himself to grab the ASR Enduro Cup. We got a crash in the dipper. It was Justin Cecil who made contact with the wall, just wide in the middle part of the dipper, and then just smacked the wall as the car gripped up again. But it looks like he's been able to continue on.
There's a pretty nasty dent in that driver's door on the right-hand side as well.
And Burke losing more time, another half a second in that first sector alone.
Yeah, so Ross is really kicking on here and making hay while the sun shines. I think he might have this one sewn up. It might be a bridge too far. Maybe it might have been better with Hans Brunswick in the car and later in the stint as well, but it would have cost him a second or 2 at the driver change. But we saw this at the Gold Coast as well, where Burke was under pressure to perform and to hang on to that win in the dying stages, the first race, the Gold Coast 400. Ultimately made some mistakes in the back half of the last lap on the green-white checker finish, and it went the wrong way for him. But he's losing touch. This gap is starting to really blow out now, out to nearly 2 seconds, 1.7 the current margin.
Yeah, so that's going to... Tell you what, Will Devenish is now only 4 seconds behind. Could there be a late move for a podium?
No, I think. Well, if Burke continues to lose time hand over fist, I think he will ultimately lose third place if Devonish keeps going at the clip that he is. So let's get a read on the times as they come across the line. We won't worry about the leaders because we know they've got this one sewn up and it's in the bag for them. So Brendan Ross, type in mistake for Burke in the final corner. 6-3 for Ross, 8 flat for Burke, and 5-3 for Devonish.
Burke just absolutely locked everything up coming into Murray's corner as well. So he's really struggling. He might have just taken a bit too much out of his tyres in the early part of the stint because he's falling apart now. So the Devonish is right on his tail now. He's just got to get through. I think that's it's Taipan in the Napa Auto Parts AP Sim Sport machine to get through, and then he'll be on Burke. But Burke again wide through the middle part of the corner. He's struggling with something. I'm not sure what it is, but he's absolutely struggling. He's fallen to pieces in the last 3 laps. It's all gone wrong.
Yeah, I've got eyes on him in the teams meeting as well just to see what's going on there. It doesn't look obvious to me what's actually going on. I think he's actually just maybe driving it a little bit too hard. There he is on screen at the moment. You can see him working the wheel. See if if he has another moment, in the next few seconds we'll capture it. But it doesn't look like it's all plain sailing. It just looks like the confidence is there. Look at the look on his face. It doesn't look like he's confident at the moment.
And another wide run over McPhillamy Park for Lockie Burke as he plunges down the hill. It's just all falling apart in the latter stages. We were talking them up so much. He almost had that move done as well, coming down in the stint prior when he was right on Rossi's tail and was catching up to him hand over fist, but it just seems to have all fallen away. And the gap now between himself and Ross is 3.5 seconds, and between himself and Devonish is just 1 second.
Yeah, you can see there it is. Like Devonish is all over him. He'll be all over him like a cheap suit on lap 20 on lap 81. For sure, if not past him. So for Lockie Burke, the gap is now probably a bridge too far and a beanstalk too tall to climb. And yeah, Devonish is, bless you, and Devonish is actually, he's in striking distance now. So if there was any hope of these guys getting the Enduro Cup title at the start of the day, it has very quickly evaporated in the last 5 laps. 7-5 for Burke, Devonish 5-7. Complete polar opposites.
And Brendan Ross was a 7-2 as well, so Will Devonish has been the fastest of the 3 of them, so this is actually he's not going to get Brendan Ross, that's just crazy talk, but yeah, third place is definitely on.
Yeah, he won't get Brendan Ross at all, but yeah, so the lap traffic here, Brody getting out of the way, letting the faster guys go past, but yeah, I think it's only a matter of time for Will Devonish closing in on the back of Lockie Burke.
While that is all happening, we've got our race leader about to come through Murray's corner to start the final lap of the Endurance Cup season, the Bathurst 500 rounding out the event. One lap left to go, of course. Remember, he's been fuel saving this entire stint. A 7.5 last lap around. He's doing it very easy at the moment, is Luke Rosella. And truth be told, they have been the form guys of the entire series. The only blemish, really, a DNF at the Gold Coast in a race that they struggled in the early stages of the drive-through penalty and then an accident. But otherwise, pole and race wins in every single part of the Sandown 300. Were leading the Gold Coast 400 first race until a little bit of contact late in the race saw them plummet down the order, but recovered to third. And then today has been an absolute ode to perfection. Both drivers breaking the lap record, starting from pole and leading every single lap of the race effectively. It's been an absolutely perfect Enduro Cup for these guys if you ignore the last part of the Gold Coast 300. And at the moment, should they cross the line as things stand, they will be taking home the ASR Enduro Cup.
Yeah, at this stage, that's the way that it looks at the moment. So half a lap to go, coming down the mountain for the final time. Very quickly going to have a bit of a look here because the last corner, it's on. Will Devonish is going to try and wrap around the outside of the final corner, and they're going to run side by side down the front straight. Not quite over and under on the crisscross for Devonish, and he's all over Lockie Burke at the moment. And we'll keep an eye on this one in the back of shot as they start the final tour. Come back to our race leader, who is 1 minute and 16 seconds ahead of the nearest rivals. Only one safety car today. better part of 2 hours and 57 minutes since the green flag dropped and the lights went out. We're going to get ourselves a race winner. And Flood, you were right. Effectively, they led every lap of the race, aside from the laps where they came in to take their service. And there were a couple of times when they didn't lead those laps. So, in the form car all year, car 2 to the 4, and will win the ASR Enduro Cup for 2021. Great effort from Stenberg and Rosella. 1 minute and 16 seconds behind is this car. The number 5 team has been Mustang, who has led a couple of laps today. And they're now about to crest Skyline and come over the top. And just a little bit behind them is this battle. It's still raging on. Devonish and Burke. Burke is just hanging on grimly by his fingernails at the moment. He's got a mirror full of that Bogdown Motorsport number 10 Commodore. And Larko says, if you defend, coming off the elbow, you defend, and that's what Burke's got to do. Oh. Devonish whacks the wall on the exit of the elbow. That might give him the invoice that he needs to pay, and that might hurt the straight line speed here just for a fraction. He's probably not going to be close enough to send it at the chase just now.
And we've seen this from Will plenty of times. When the red mist comes down, sometimes there's a little mistake to pay, and that might have been it there as they go deep into the chase. He's going to have one more opportunity to make this move for 3rd place on the podium. Lights are on. There's lap traffic in the way. There's Stephen Warwick just coming around the final corner. Burt goes all the way to the inside. Has he gone too defensive? Rossi will take 2nd place.
It. And on the exit, is it Devonish or is it Burke? It's Burke just by
33 hundredths of a second.
33 thousandths of a second.
Oh,
if you don't mind.
Yes.
3 hundredths of a second. 33 thousandths of a second. He gets to the line, secures 3rd. So he defended very, very well at the end there to just hang on by the skin of his teeth to a 3rd place finish. Ultimately not going to be enough, obviously subject to the stewards' reviews and all of that. It's we should say all the points are provisional. But at the moment as it stands, the top 3 cars that finished this race, the top 3 in the championship, and very, very close run championship at the end of the day as well. So 3rd place for Burke, 4th for Devonish. So Scott Stancliffe brings the Kiwi Sim Sports Commodore home for 5th. So they were the last car on the lead lap. They got home on the lead lap. So 5 cars home on the lead lap, and that's redemption for them from last year. That's a good finish to their campaign. Good result for the Kiwis as well. NZ Snipes and Shees finish in 6th. That backs up the 4th place finish they had last year. So that's a really good drive for them yet again. Remember last year they actually drove from the same cockpit in the same car, so that's a big achievement.
Yeah, that's right.
And the 3rd Kiwi car finishes in 7th. So Kiwi branded cars 5th, 6th and 7th. So that's a big ups for those guys. The only Kiwi car that didn't finish in the top 10 or actually didn't finish the race was car 187, the Penrite Ryco racing machine. Cox is having to push.
Yep.
He's having to push the leaders home. So they got a lap and a little bit left. I'm wondering if there's a rule that says you have to have a litre of fuel in the tank when you get to scrutineering. We might have to go back to the record books for that one, I think, or the rule book and have a look at that one. Burko brings the C7 Motorsport Nissan home in 9th. So all 3 of the Nissans finished in the top 10. So that's a really good result for the Nissan from manufacturer's point of view. And then Justin Cecil, the LLM number 2237, despite the drive-through penalty late in the race, gets home for 10th. So good to see at some of the younger competitors that are not the quickest cars in the world. They've actually managed to get home in the top 10 by being smart, playing a good strategy, and really being just driving a sensible race all around. So just outside the 10 though, Steve Warwick and RSM Latino for Blackshaws and RSM. Taipan and Matt Cecil home for 12th place, so that's a good solid drive for them. They were the last car a lap in terms of laps down. For that one there. Termo and Cam Rutledge, those guys had a bit of a fall from their lofty starting position inside the top 10 when the race began. You've got Ben Hall and John McDonald, 14th, and then 6 laps down at the end of it all, Rhodey and Brad Severs in 15th. 3 cars didn't see the flag, Lai Mitch and Ujit Mishra. Well, at least Ujit got more laps in than he did combined last year. So they had a good run until there was actually a game crash for Lai Mitch. Phil Boak and Brenton Foley suffered the engine failure, and also Josh Andrew and Braxton Stancliffe. So just the 2 engine failures for this year. I'm actually really pleased here, gents, because last year with the Bathurst 500, we had all sorts of dramas with the computers crashing and having the timing tree disappear from the left-hand side of the screen. This thing's held up. Both the machines are held up for 3 hours, and we actually got all the way through. So I'm really super impressed that we got to the end there, unimpeded, uninterrupted, and really, really big hats off, not just to the guys that had to spend a bit of time to try and work out all the graphic settings and stuff, but I think that's a testament to how the track has been built with the low poly count and all of that to actually make it run and make it be smooth, so that way it minimises the load on everything. And there was actually a late texture update overnight, I believe, as well, that a few of us applied for the game to try and actually make sure that a lot of people actually made it to the end. So that's really, really pleasing and really, really good to see.
And only one game crashed throughout the entire race as well. So that's a really really well done thing from the admins to make it build a track and build a series that will cope, and then for everyone to get through. That's just so super encouraging. And you hate seeing technical dramas decide races. And it's great that everyone managed to get through. I mean, of course, besides Lay Mitch, which is a bit of a shame for himself and Nugent Mishra. But besides that, everyone managed to make it over the line without any problems.
Absolutely.
And it
looks like we're starting to get a few people jumping into the box ready to use. And we'll start off with our race and our Endurance Cup Championship winners. Kurt Stenberg, Luke Rosella, what a way to close out the Endurance Cup campaign. You guys were utterly flawless today.
Yeah, thanks, Floody. Yeah, I mean, what a week. Carl's been excellent throughout the whole practice. Stenny did an amazing job first stint, or first half. Yeah, flawless from him. And now I finished it off. Bit of fuel saving in the final stint there to get to, I think, what was it, 14 or 13 laps? Can't remember.
13.
Yep, 13. Yeah. And Enduro Cup champions. So, yeah, we the cherry on the top.
And the extra cherry for you, Luke, you took home the fastest lap and a new lap record. Did you have that in mind when you got into the car, that you wanted to oust Stenberg's effort from earlier in the day?
Oh, I think every racing driver wants to beat his teammate, or his co-driver in this sense. Yeah, I was having a go as usual. But yeah, I mean, good job to the other podium getters, Lewis Wedding and Brennan Ross. They were so quick this week. They did an amazing job, and yeah, Lockie and Hans. Lockie was just so good. Yeah, I feel real sorry for them. They didn't get that title they really wanted. They fully deserved it. And also I want to say well done to Mitch and Orchard as well. They did a amazing job. Bad luck for them to get their retirement, but they've been working real hard throughout the week. I always want to thank Cole, who was on the spanners this week, and also Scott Nolan, who brought this whole thing together with me and Stenny. So yeah, what a week, what an Enduro Cup. Had fun.
Yeah, well done, Luke. And Kurt, yourself, a little bit of a tumultuous Enduro Cup for you in the middle part with that DNF at the Gold Coast. But otherwise, let's focus on the otherwise. You've been absolutely flawless. You've taken pole positions at every race, and the win at Sandown, both races of the grid, and here today. How does that feel for you? Does that feel like a bit of redemption after the last round out?
Oh, excellent, mate. It's huge redemption. Like, I was absolutely gutted after beating that car at Gold Coast. I cannot express that, especially to Luke, when I knew the pace that we had in that car, and I'd done a lot of practice for that event. Where the other two, Sandown and Bathurst, I've been a bit undercooked going in. I haven't really had the best practice because of other things going on in life. But yeah, I'm so glad we did some laps earlier this week, got a dock together. We really wanted to win this race and win it by as much as possible. And make it as easy as possible for ourselves, and we did. The car was excellent. Luke fine-tuned it with Cole during the week, and man, they got the thing fucking on point. It's great. I loved it. It was so good today to drive, and such excellent job from Luke. I'm absolutely ecstatic.
You can hear the pleasure in your voice as well. Yeah, how was the drive in that first stint? Because you looked like you were just able to power away and pull away without any care in the world.
Yeah, like the car. one thing when I first drove the car early in the week, because we switched to the hard tyres, I was struggling a bit with the car turning in, but we made some setup changes, but we were struggling to get good drive. And it's something that Luke's obviously worked on during the week, and he's made the thing into a rocket off the corners. It turns and it gets off the corner. And yeah, there's no care in the world. Even when the tyres are old, it's basically the last lap. It was a bit hairy, but as you probably saw, I had a few moments in my stint over the top where I thought our race was ending, but managed to keep it under control. But other than that, car was excellent. So it was very easy to drive, and yeah, got the result.
And one last point, you had for the moment the race lap record around this track for ASR, but that was stolen away from your teammate, from you by your teammate late on in the race. Any final words for Luke Rosella?
Well, I'll be honest. I knew he was faster than me, hence me being the co-driver. But I wanted to put the best lap in to make it as difficult as possible for him to get the fastest lap. I'm not going to lie. And he went out and he eclipsed it. So yeah, I did put the pressure on him there to do that, because I knew that he'd be gunning for it. But yeah, a bit of a game between us, I guess.
Well done. And just quickly as well, Luke, that's back-to-back Bathurst 500 wins for you in ASR, AMSOs. That must feel pretty great as well. Carried once again to the championship.
Yeah, carried. Yeah. No, it feels amazing. Yeah, back to back, another trophy in the cabinet, along with the first one and the Boxer Cup. So yeah, hopefully I can add one more, which is the main game later on this year. So yeah, can't wait.
Happy days. Congratulations to our race winners and our championship winners, Luke Rosella and Kurt Stenberg.
Thanks, mate.
Kiwi, second place.
So yes, our team has been machine. Oh, Lewis Wedding, Brendan Ross. Gentlemen, second place, you got to be pretty happy with that, right?
Mate, it was a very tough race, but yeah, congrats to Luke and Stenny. They were definitely throughout all the Enduro Cup and just ran a pretty much flawless Bathurst 500. Sorry, they really were in their own league. Tough for Lockie and Haas not claiming the Enduro Cup, but man, they raced us all day and it was so much fun towards the end. But overall, 500, we there or thereabouts. Had the pace. And pretty consistent throughout the day. Lewis played his part massively. He was very consistent throughout the day. Played a little bit of Ludo the Choir for me, keeping it nice and smooth. But overall, second place for Bathurst is just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lewis, we looked at you a couple of times on video. You looked incredibly focused, and that was a great effort from yourself, mate. Talk us through the rest from your point of view.
Well, it's actually quite drama-free, and that's all we've sort of wanted all Enduro Cup, was just to be, run our own races and just avoid some of the drama and incidents that play out, and happened to get a good start. Was able to sort of just run my own race there, even though Mitch sort of got ahead of me, and I just wanted to run our own race. First stint, we opted to pit early just to sort of offset, because you knew the pits were very, very tight, and it pretty much paid off straight away, because with that offset, driver change, and Rossi did some good laps, and then, the guys we were racing got stuck in the pits, and because we pitted early, we had a faster pit stop as well. So, we were pretty much all series long. We were really good strategy-wise, and then today, outside of that last stint, car was comfortable. Last stint, I had to do a bit of fuel saving just to get a lap back. So the way when we pitted under that safety car there, just threw us out just a smidge, but yeah, got a bit of fuel saving there that I had to do, and I was a bit worried that Burke would get us, but I was able to hold on there, and then from there, Rossi, he did a flawless job, and outside of the time that he tried to barrel roll us into the Sandown Hotel in the sprint race there, outside of that, we've had pretty much a flawless run, and yeah, he's been a fantastic teammate. He's got broad shoulders and a pretty strong back to carry me around in this series. And, further down the track, if the opportunity arises, I'm sure we'll do it again. But big props again to Luke and Stenny. I mean, they are in a class of their own, both in the main series and here. And you put them both in the same car. And, well, I'm sure that they probably wanted deep down, probably to lap the entire field, but they had to do a little bit of fuel saving, and I think the safety car sort of threw that out. But look, for us to get as close as we did, fair effort, especially to Rossi, and then yeah, great battle all race long with both the AAR cars at the start, and then particularly with Berkey and the Hans car there at the end. So big ups to those guys, and thanks everyone that's participated in the series and has watched the series as well.
Exactly, we echo those thoughts. Team has been still are second place at Bathurst 500. Well done, gents.
It
Thank
was.
you.
And go third place, Flood. Back to you.
And it's a bit of a hard luck story for third place. Lockie Burke and Hans Brunswick controlling the Endurance Cup Championship right till the very end, and then falling just 4 points short. We'll start with Hans. Hans started off the race very, very nicely, making some waves up the field, and handed the car over after a monster triple stint. How was that first triple stint for you?
Oh, it was pretty hairy in the first stint, I reckon, but I think I managed to hit my stride by the last stint, but then had to save fuel. So fuel saving, trying to get just that little bit more out of the tank, so we got to lap 33, and then we could put Berkey in the car, so then he can make up the deficit from just having me in the car. So I mean, like Lewis said about Rossi, I think Berkey's got pretty broad shoulders and a strong back as well. So it's been great to be a part of it, and just to. I mean, we didn't get the ultimate prize in the end, but to get a podium out of this, and especially, I've had a absolutely rubbish lead up into this. Haven't been able to do as much practice as I would have liked. Work forced me to work from home. Work doing their best to try and sap every little bit of enjoyment out of my life that I've got left, and just obviously not a very good environment, but just being able to. Just being able to make the start was an achievement for me, especially, I'm sure Nether would already know that I've had a few internet issues at home, so had to move all my sim equipment into another room, and just to, drive with Berkey and, have set up help from Luke and Stenny and stuff like that. It's just been absolutely fantastic. Cole's been helping as well. Mitch and Orjit, they've been, they were there or thereabouts today all race, and unfortunately Mitch had a memory leakage issue, and I know what that's like, and I feel really bad for those guys because they were on for a hot result as well, and just really happy that we were able to just get to the podium today, and Berkey's just fantastic, and even when in the changeover when it set the steering lock to a steering angle to 540, Berkey still pressed on. He gritted his teeth and he got on with it, and that just shows the quality of driver and the bloke he is, because it could have been game over, but he just did a fantastic job, and I'm just so proud of the team.
Yeah, well done, Hans. You can certainly hear the gratitude in your voice there. Berkey, how about you? You finished off the race. You did a full 47 laps to finish off the race. It looked like it was getting a bit big for you at the very end there, but you powered through and ended up just taking third place on the line. How was that last stint?
Last stint was out of this world. Like going from being right on Rossi and then getting unlucky with a few lap traffic, which is always happens, unfortunately, but just being right on him and then coming into the last couple of laps, all of a sudden having to go defensive. It was just, I was hanging on for dear life.
And you just hung on as well, 33 thousandths of a second at the line between yourself and Will. How was that last lap? Just take us through that last lap. We saw you block plenty hard at the cutting and plenty hard at Murray's.
Yeah, just come across the final lap, and Hans, forget the kitchen sink. I'm throwing the whole kitchen at this. So I just put my head down, focused on hitting my lines perfectly due to my steering lock being at 540. I wasn't used to it because I'd been practicing at 360. But just put my head down, focused on hitting every single apex, and our tires were shot, and with Will coming right up behind us, I'm like, the last thing I can do is I have to really defend at the cutting, because my run out of the cutting had been terrible all day. So I defended at the cutting really hard, just managed to defend it, and then coming into the final corner, I kind of just did the exact same thing that I did at the cutting and just slowed it right up, and just
managed to hold on. A quick one for both of you guys. We know that you're incredibly disappointed to miss out on the championship, of course, but you took home 4 podiums, I think, in the end, between the pair of you, including the qualifying races, and we're 4 points away from overall. An honest assessment, guys. Would you expected anything like that at the start of the Endurance Cup championship between the two of you, and looking at the competition that you guys had?
Not at all.
Hans?
Honestly, anything could have happened. We didn't know what was going to happen, but when we came out of the box, firing at Sandown, I knew it was going to be a good time with Berkey driving the car and me just helping it along as much as I could. And we've done a fantastic job, and that's probably the most we could have done. And we don't need to be too hard on ourselves, because we gave it absolutely everything, and we don't need to die wondering. It's been fantastic.
And sorry to cut you off there, Berkey. You can offer your thoughts as well.
Just at the start of the Enduro Cup, I was not expecting it at all, considering this is my first year in ASR, and at the start of the year I was a bit thereabouts, and then just out of nowhere, especially during the Enduros, I found heaps of pace.
And you, managed to take home second place in the championship and third place today. That's a great achievement, guys. Congratulations to the pair of you. And well done. Hopefully, hope for the best for the rest of the supercars season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for putting it on.
No problems. An absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to broadcast these races. And while I've got a moment, I do want to put a massive thank you out to Steve DeVries, Outworld Broadcasting broadcast specialist. The work that you do, Steve, in bringing these events to life is absolutely phenomenal, and it gives myself and Kiwi the absolute pleasure and privilege of being able to just jump on and offer our thoughts and our voices. And congratulations on a great broadcast of the 3 events rather.
Thanks very much, guys. There's a couple of things to that. Yes, the broadcast package it's evolved over the years in terms of what we do and how we do it. It's obviously not on the same level of, polishedness as like a V8 Supercars or some other series out there. But we do our best, and we want to bring more so about the action more than putting, the fluff on that actually looks, that actually makes it look like it's a real broadcast. I mean, you sort of got to find that balance a little bit. A lot of people actually don't know that a lot of the broadcasts this year that have happened on the Outworld Broadcasting channels, so Supercars, GT3, the Enduro Cup, some of the graphics have actually made their way into the other series. So the series that yourself and Kiwi broadcast, the Super Series, the graphics are provided by Outworld Broadcasting. So too, some of the graphics that goes into the point screens and a few other small things for the Loose Sim Network, who broadcast the Super 2 series for ASR as well. So we've sort of had a bit of a hand in all of the broadcast facets this year, with just trying to sort of bring a bit of commonality or a bit of the same sort of look and feel to a lot of the broadcasts this year. So it's been a little bit of a bigger effort stepping up this year. I know how some people sort of feel with one other person that did a fair bit of that back in the day and sort of burnt themselves out, but it's sort of a knack that I've sort of found enjoying myself doing this year. So grateful that you guys were a part of it, and grateful that you also continue to be a part of a lot of things this year as well.
It's an absolute pleasure, Steve, and thank you for having us on board, and thank you for everyone who's put this event together. Scott Nolan doing the points, and all the admins and track builders and livery designers and drivers. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. And on top of that, a big thank you to Penrite, A Better Class of Oil, and Ryco Filters for everything that they've done for us this year. And to the guys who are first, second, third overall in the Enduro Cup standings, and for those that were on the podium as well. While we have seen what we are getting, we haven't actually worked out how we're going to divvy it all up yet. So just sit tight for a little bit. I know you'll probably be all keen to work out what sort of prizes you actually have won from this. A lot of it's merchandise. Penrite and Ryco sponsored merchandise. There's a few things thrown in there from Milwaukee as well from last year, but there's a few things we need to sort of work out about how we actually divvy it up. There'll probably be a couple of other prizes as well, I'd imagine. There might be something for a best livery in there, or a best moment of the series, and I think some of the items that we are in the prize pack are probably going to flow over into our end of year season awards as well. So there'll be a little bit still to work out. And probably in about the coming weeks, look out for the annual questionnaire that goes out for voting on those different moments. So there's a bit of water to flow under the bridge for all that just yet. And with the Enduro Cup out of the way, it's I guess this week it's back to regular programming. There's actually no broadcast this week. The only series that's on this week for ASR is the Aussie racing cars on Tuesday night. There's a bit of a gap, and then it starts to get a bit busy. We start getting back into Super Series and GT3 and Supercars and Super 2. There's a little bit still to go. So for those of you not in the, I guess, up to speed with the calendar, I haven't got one prepared for you, but there's still 4 rounds of the Super Series left. So that's fortnightly Tuesdays, starting in a week and a little bit from now. So the next race for that is going to be broadcast over on the Endurance Chat media channel. That'll be on the 26th of October. We have then got the GT3 Monza. Monza, baby, is coming. The second last of the GT3 rounds on the 30th of October. So that's one we're looking forward to. There's 2 rounds left in that series still to go. There's 2 rounds of Super 2 and Supercars. We've got Pukekohe and Townsville are the 2 races that lie ahead of us. Then first one of those, Super 2 resuming on November the 5th. That'll be over on the Loose Sim Network channel. And then Supercars is here on Outworld Broadcasting on the 12th of November. So it's a busy back half to the year. I counted up now. There's 4 rounds of Aussie racing cars still to go. There's 4 rounds of Super Series. So that's 8. 2 rounds of GT3, 2 rounds of Super 2 and 2 rounds of Supercars. So there's 14 races all up, and the only races of those that are not broadcast are the Aussie racing cars. So there's 10 broadcasts all up across 3 different channels. So
it's going to be a wild end to the year.
It's going to be a wild end to the year. But thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to everybody who participated in the series. And thank you to Penrite and Ryko and not just only those guys, but all of the smaller sponsors as well. Smith & Sons, CRE Electrical, Beyond Electrical, and all those guys that have given a bit of time and a bit of money to ASR over the last 18 months. We certainly do appreciate your assistance and your continued gratitude. See you next time, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your week. Bye for now. The 2021 ASR Supercars Enduro Cup is proudly brought to you by Penrite Oil, Australian made and owned since 1926. Penrite, a better class of oil. Ryko Filters, the professional's choice for high-performance automotive filters since 1936. ASR would also like to acknowledge the ongoing support of Cam Rutledge Electrical, Matt Harvey Repair and Tune, Endurance Chat Media, Beyond Electrical, and Smith & Sons Renovations and Extensions. Thank you for being a part of our series through 2020 and 2021.